We must have a lot of people here.
Thanks, everyone.
So do you need to reassign us as co-host?
I'm sure I will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if everyone can mute themselves again.
Yes, please. Thank you.
You
All
may
right, I'm
want,
going to try to
you may
find
want to put in, you may want to put in all the docs, the Google Docs for all the new folks.
Shira, if we as volunteers have answers to the Google Doc questions, do you want us to do that, or
Please.
should we just
Oh,
wait? for
yes, if you
to-
feel, if any volunteer feel, and mute, please, if everyone can mute, please. If any volunteer feels qualified to answer those questions, Susan, Lisa, obviously you're one of them, please feel free. I'm just gonna keep bringing people in here, and once I do, actually, I'm gonna make Lisa, I'm gonna go ahead and make you, just because you're in front of me, I'm gonna make you co-host, and
Shira, just so you're aware, even though you make somebody co-host, they still can't make others co-hosts. You
Oh,
have
they
to do it
can't.
all.
understood. All right, so then
Yep.
volunteers, if you can continue to admit people in, I'm gonna go run through every participants. I apologize for this, but I need to make my
We
volunteer.
don't have the ability until we're co-hosts, I think, to admit people.
Got it. So thanks everyone for your patience here while I go find some of my volunteers. To make them co-hosts. And you can still work on your passiontivity while we're doing this. Appreciate your patience.
Testing our multitasking skills.
There you go. We're just flexy flex around here.
Sure, just keep letting people in as they
Yes,
re-enter?
please. Yes,
Okay.
please. Yes, please. Yep. Want as many people as in as possible. All right. I think I've gotten most of my yes, so the this is being recorded again. So this is the second version of the recording. So I'm sure I'll have to put this in twice in the thing. Okay, so I'm not sure if we have new folks, but we're going to go ahead and just jump back on in to the regular presentation.
We're back up to about 85.
Great. I'm hoping that we will get over the 100. That'll let me know that it worked. Okay. So let's all right. So
I'm going to see if I can send a message through Eventbrite to people too. I'm going to try and do that.
yeah, I'm hopeful. All right. So moving right along. Okay. So now you've hopefully done your 5-minute exercise, and I'd like to share with you another tool for your toolkit, and it's going to help you to shift your lane by repositioning your high engagement skills. And this is why I asked you to do high engagement. So the first is what I call ING. And it sounds funny, right? Your ING skill. So when I think of an ING skill, here's an example: writing. Okay. So you have a lot of ING skills. You've got, event planning, you've got budget management, right? You've got skills that you have amassed over the years, things that have helped you to do your job. And whatever your career has been, whatever your field, you have amassed ING skills. But that is different than what I call your Your is your profession. So writing is the skill, writer is the profession. It's very simple. Event planning, event planner, project management, project manager. The reason why I talk about this at this stage is because as you're thinking about a possible lane shift, and by the way, I'm not saying that you have to shift your lane. Actually, it's much easier if you don't shift your lane. But if you needed to shift your lane, I want you to be thinking about this because it's very, very, very helpful. If you have this new then what you can do is you can look through your skill sets and say, do I have a number of ING related skills that can help me transfer into an profession? Let me give you a perfect example. So many years ago, I was working with a gentleman who was an attorney. And let's just say he wanted to become a recovering attorney, right? He didn't want to be an attorney anymore. And he decided he wanted to be a writer. Well, how do you turn an attorney into a writer? Well, attorneys do a lot of writing, right? So I looked at his resume and I said, all right, let's pull out all of the different skills, the writing skills that he did in his legal writing, recreate his resume. Of course, we can't change his titles, but we highlighted all of his writing skills, actually exclusively highlighted those skills. And then we went to his LinkedIn profile, created an about page. And the about page was really all about his writing, right? Why he liked to write, the kind of writing he did, so forth. He ended up getting a job as a journalist with a legal trade publication. So notice what happened. He shifted his lane. He kept his community. So the lane turned into writing, or writer rather, and then his community was still legal. So the employer of the legal trade publication said, ah, yes, he understands us. He understands our business challenges. He gets where we're at. Now today he's an English teacher. So he was able to bounce out of legal altogether by shifting his lane, okay? And we've talked already about community, which is the industry mission.
Share.
How long have I been on mute?
Just seconds.
Oh, good. Okay. So when you put all of these things together, right, you can see that there is a way to do this pivot. But same thing with the community. Okay. So let's just say you want to shift your community. It may be that you have a lane that you are really, really deep in, but in a part of your background, you've had that community or that industry mission or sector exposure. They were a client, they were a constituent, maybe you were a federal employee and you worked with a nonprofit and they were in that sector, whatever it is, but you have some understanding of what that community is about, their sectoral challenges, their business challenges, the trends, whatever. It may be that you can then repurpose your lane into that community by highlighting your community experience on your resume, on your LinkedIn. And I'm going to go back to the individual I just mentioned earlier that I was coaching this morning. I mentioned he's cross-sectoral. Well, in our conversation this morning, he did mention to me, he happens to have a real passion for workforce development. Makes sense, just the nature of the nonprofits he's worked for. And so we spent a little bit of time there. And I said to him, are you interested in leaning into that particular community? Now, as it turns out, he didn't want to. He decided that he wanted to stay cross-sectoral, but he was thinking about it for a minute because he really loved that work. Now, had he said yes, we would have gone through an exercise where we would have pulled out his community-related experience, layered it into his resume, changed his LinkedIn profile, made sure that we were leaning into the community focus. Why? Because when your employer is looking at the resume or when people are looking at your LinkedIn profile, they want to see, right, where you're leaning. It's very, very helpful for them when they're thinking about this shift. Okay. So I've spent a lot of time here because I really want you to get this is possible. It absolutely is a way that you can make this career shift if you need to. And so I mentioned here a few examples of event planning, event planner, so forth and so on. Okay. Policy analyst, policy analysis, policy analyst. All right. So now we're actually going to do our first breakout. And I'm going to say that this is going to be 10 minutes. And you're going to assign a time monitor. Okay. And you're going to share the following information, okay, with your breakout. If my computer will work, that would be great. Oh my goodness. Here we go. All right. So you're currently, what's your profession right now, right? It could be your title. It could be just sort of where you are in your lane. The possible newer lane that you may want to explore and why. And ask your group to help you brainstorm about the potential learning curve that you need. I'm not saying you have to change your lane. You do not. Again, it's easier if you don't. But in case you wanted to, I want you to think about what might be the And by the way, one of the best ways to do that is to go back to your high engagement box in the Passiontivity exercise. Let's say you have 7 different skills there. It may be that one of those ing skills is highlighted to you. You love doing that skill so much, so much, you want to actually change it into an So again, that writer thing, writing of whatever sort, marketing, whatever it is one of your ing skills. And you're like, no, I want to be a marketer. I want to be a writer, I want to be a policy analyst, I want to be, right? That kind of thing. So that's what you're going to do there. And then if you don't want or need to shift lanes, just simply describe the kind of role that you're seeking. And then also notice what themes you notice about your superpowers, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and set up these breakout rooms. And they're going to be pretty small, okay? They're going to be, I'm trying to get it to be about 3 or 4 people per room, okay? And again, we're going to go in for 10 minutes. And again, volunteers, please do not hit the join button. I will reposition you. Here you go.
Did you say do not join? Push the
Oh, yes,
join button?
participants, if you're regular participants, please do hit the join button. I was speaking specifically to the volunteers on this call. We have about 10 or 12 volunteers. I've asked the volunteers not to hit their join button. Please, everyone else, if you are a regular participant, please hit your join button. And I'm repositioning folks right now.
And you're ready for us to hit join
Yes,
in the one?
I'm ready for you to hit, yep, ready for you to hit join if you are a volunteer.
And if the join button is no longer accessible to us,
It should be somewhere on your screen.
I don't see it either.
it's gone. Yeah, it's like you had the chance to join and then we didn't, and now.
And now it's not there.
But we
It's
can
not
go to
there.
breakout rooms ourselves as co-hosts if you want to tell us where.
Go ahead, at this point, you can go ahead and pick one. It's all right. We won't-
But if you're not a co-host, how do we do it if we're not a co-host?
Okay, so Susan,
Oh, and I'm not a co-host anymore either. Sure.
okay.
I'll join room 3. Oh, room 3?
Yeah, wherever you'd like at this point. Let
think
me, I'm trying to
Lisa's
find the
there.
folks who are not.
I think
I'm
Lisa's
joining
there.
room 2 or 5, sorry, room 5.
Oh,
Can
I'll
you
go to
see,
6.
Michael, can you see any of the rooms to join?
I can see 7.
I'll go to 6.
I'm repositioning everyone who is not yet joined. I'm moving you around.
Shira, I joined, but mine ended up being all facilitator, so I left.
Okay.
Same with me.
Best laid plans. Okay, I'm
I'm-
repositioning now.
I'm actually trying to compose an email to go out through Eventbrite, so maybe I should stay out.
If you'd like, certainly.
Well, once
And what
they're
are we
here-
supposed to be doing in the room again?
Just to facilitate the conversation.
Okay, so that's room 11, so maybe one at a time, so we're not in a team.
And just keep an eye on, because while you've been doing that, other people asked to be admitted to the actual event.
Okay, yes. So volunteers, if you could admit people, please.
So I've admitted people. I don't know if they'll still pop up if I'm in a room. So anyway, I'll go ahead and join and see what happens.
Okay, Monica, I see room 11 on my screen. I don't know if we should wait for another number to pop up so I can.
Shira, I joined mine, but I was by myself.
Okay, and I'm sorry, see can you say your name? Because I can't see everyone.
That was
Oh,
Jamie.
sorry, it's Jamie.
Jamie, okay.
You put me in 18, I think it was.
Jonathan, I've been trying to move you around. Okay, I see.
I'm available if a room needs someone, because I went to a room and only one showed up and she didn't take her microphone off.
Okay, Jonathan, Heather, Jamie, I've put you around, put you in rooms. James, are you here?
James, you might be on
Dominique,
mute.
Dominique, are you here? I've just moved you.
I'm here. Oh, it says,
I just
now
moved you.
mine says join breakout room
Yep,
5.
I'm moving people around. I'm
You
moving
ready
you
for-
around.
I'm okay to join 5
You're
then?
yep, please go join.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Karen, I'm moving you right now. Please hit the join button. Michael, I'm moving you.
Yes.
Please hit the join button.
Okay.
Shiraz, I'm moving you. Please hit the join button. JF,
sorry.
I'm moving you. Please hit the join button. I think I've got everybody. Monica, I'll go ahead and move you. Please hit the join button. Jonathan, I don't know if you're still there, but I'm moving you. Please hit the join button. Okay, good.
I'm sorry, Shira. Could you return me to the group you put me in? I lost connection. I was with Cam, I believe. I'm sorry. What's else that? Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Hi, Shira. I was alone in 18.
You were alone in 18? Okay.
Yep.
So I will, I'm going to move you to 16.
Okay.
Cam. 2. Thank you, Dominique. That's why we need all hands on deck. All right, 25 seconds, people will be back.
On the webinar. You got a treat.
Can we go ahead and mute everyone, please?
Reserved.
Okay.
Everyone can please be muted. Thank you. All right, volunteers, is everyone back? Can you see? Volunteer, can you open your mic and just let me know
Yes.
that
Yes.
everyone's back? Great, thank
We're
you.
back.
We're back.
Okay,
Yep.
fabulous.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we've just had a small breakup. Thank you. Please forgive me for all of the bouncing around here. Hope you had at least, somewhat of a productive conversation talking about your lane. What I want to shift now is a little bit into the community conversation. Okay, so considering which NGPS or other organizations could benefit from your agency, GovCon, or nonprofit experience. I do know we have a number of participants here who don't know what I mean by NGPS, so let me explain. So going back to the beginning of our presentation, we talked about the fact that because the federal disruption is impacting the entire community, federal employees, GovCon.
Shira, you're muted again, I believe.
No, I think
No,
she's
she's
frozen.
frozen.
You're frozen, Shira. She's frozen.
Either
Yeah,
her
the-
internet, either her internet's bad or she needs to log in again, if someone can tell her.
I will text her.
Oh, she dropped.
She probably knows, but I'll text her.
She'll be back.
Technology is great when it works, right?
And how often is that?
You're flexible when it doesn't and
That's
appreciate
right.
your resilience.
Exactly.
Right.
She's back. Oh,
No,
she goes again.
not yet.
Okay, I'll tell her she's frozen.
And I hope she's not chatting, which often happens too.
Well, 88 people showed back up, so that's good.
That's very good.
Yeah. Anybody want to discuss highlights of their breakout room while we're waiting?
Well, it was good to listen to listen to other people's thoughts of what they were going to do. Gives me some insight as to, you know, some of the things I should think about as I try to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. You know, and I just want to say Yvette that, because a couple of people came in late. You know, I just want to say to Yvette that, you know, no whether I believe she's gonna make it where she is, you know, and no matter what, you know, you will land on your feet. So I just want to say that to her. But I just enjoyed listening to the people I was talking to.
That's very encouraging. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to,
Yeah, I have an interesting one. I just had one participant, but we had a really very full range of conversation. And I might even have a couple of contacts for her that could be helpful in the search. So we exchanged information, but it really felt good to be able to pretend to, you know, put forward potentially 2 different resources, not just one, but 2. And one of them I happened to be talking to this morning. So some of this is just coincidence, but it worked well, and hopefully it will materialize in the future.
I have a question. This morning you had a session was there a session where you had with Robert Trudeau, we had when they had interviews where people interviewed each other, and they were going over how to interview with the private sector?
could everyone mute beside the person speaking just so we can hear them?
Sorry, I'm in a Barnes and Noble, so you may not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got to get out of my house. It's very crazy.
So you're asking about another session this morning, that's some
Yeah,
different
the session
session?
this morning. Was there a session this morning?
Not from this group.
There
Yeah.
was from another group called Career Confidence. They had some things going on.
Right.
So that might be something that you saw.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to that. Did you go, and how was it?
I did not go.
Oh, I missed that on.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, the Arlington Employment Center also had something going on this morning
Oh, wow.
online.
Lots of things. That's wonderful.
Lots of things. There's a hand raise from MSIM.
He's the one who just spoke.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
he was the one speaking. Oh, okay.
Any other reflections from anybody in terms of maybe how your search is going? Karen, I see you have your hand up.
I just wanted to make a suggestion. Those who are able to go ahead and put your LinkedIn link in the chat, because as Shira said earlier, networking is key. So that'd be a great way for us to start connecting with each other.
Thank you, everybody, for handling this while my Wi-Fi we had a power surge, and it's beautiful.
Oh.
day, and who knew?
Of course, of course. We've had a good conversation, Shira, just talking about what was discussed in the breakout rooms, and somebody has helped somebody else with some possibilities.
Lovely, lovely.
And
That's
everybody's
productive.
sharing LinkedIn connections in the chat because you never know.
That's what we want to do. See, this was a blessing in disguise, right? This got you all talking.
Don't we want to also encourage the using of the spreadsheet for?
Yes, yes.
profile and stuff?
For those of you who are newer to our conversation today, who missed out on this, Ronnie, you're our Google Doc girl. If you can go ahead and put in the chat for everyone, we have several Google Docs. One of them is for networking, where you can put your name, your email, your lane, your community, all the things. There's another document just for resource sharing, for articles and coaches and just recruiters, and there's a lot of resources in there. And then there's another document for questions for me, in case as we go along you have questions that because there's so many people, we won't have ability to monitor chat. So our 10+ volunteers are all monitoring the Google Doc and will interrupt me if needed. Okay. Great. And Vern, good to see you. So amazingly, you're on my panel here. Vern Schellinger is a trusted colleague. He actually is a volunteer with me on, I have a weekly or a bi-weekly call, pre-Higher Vision. It's called Higher Moment Mastermind. And I started during COVID, and it's just for any job seeker. It's an open Q&A, myself and Vern and another gentleman, Alki Thompson. We do this every other Friday from 9:15 to 10:15 Eastern. Vern, I know you have the link. I'm not going to be able to do chat right now, but if you want to put the Zoom link for Hire Moment Mastermind in the chat, you're welcome to do that. It's also on Meetup, Hire HIRE Moment Mastermind. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep on going here. When we talk about shifting your community, okay, that's where I stopped. Okay. All right. By the way, I know people, if any of the volunteers are trying to text me now, I won't be able to see the text. All right. But if a volunteer needs me, you need to open up your mic, please do that instead, since I won't be checking text right now. All right. So what I wanted to do here is give you some sample community pivots. Why am I doing this? Because a lot of you come from a governmental sector, right? You work for EPA, you work for TSA, you work for HHS, what have you. Or maybe you're with a GovCon that's in that sector, or you're with an NGO in that sector. And you might be thinking to yourself, how in the world can I shift to a non-federal government private sector company? Well, I put down some samples in here. What I'm going to do is have you go we're going to get into LinkedIn and do a real practical exercise for how you can figure this out. But I just wanted to give you some samples, right? So you're in the environmental sector and maybe you want to go into an environmental engineering firm. You're in transportation, maybe you want to go into airports. In fact, the reason why I came up with that particular one, there's this lady that I go to church with, and she works for TSA. And she was literally sharing with me a couple weeks ago. She goes, I'm going to try to flip into the airport that I work for. I'm like, well, that's so smart, right? I want you to be thinking creatively about the flip side of the agency or the nonprofit that you or GovCon that you work for, and who might be appropriate. I did want to mention for our international development community, I know we of course have many, many of them, that, there are for-profits, and I know Susan Nickbarg, who's on this call, plays very much in this space in the, I'm going to broadly call it the corporate social responsibility world. I know there are many names for it, ESG, and Susan's actually quite the expert on the topic. But there are international, what we call B Corps. Ben & Jerry's is a very good example of that, where it's a for-profit company, but it has a lot of sort of social mission, social venture kind of a thing. Might be very interesting for people who are in the international development world or impact investing. So I'm just giving you some examples. Of course, that there's no way that I could cover everything here, but this is just to give you some ideas. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one more breakout. Hopefully this will work well. And I'm just going to recreate. Actually, I don't know if I can. Well, and I'm going to see about recreating the groups. I'm not going to move people around anymore. If you've got a join button, just hit the join button. It's going to be hard to reposition everyone. And I do want you to share the following: your current community. And again, we are talking about the governmental sectors here. Again, environment, transportation, financial services, military, whatever you are, humanitarian, however you define your community. And by the way, you may not have one. I think there are people on this call, I suspect, particularly if you don't work for a governmental agency or an NGO. Let's just say you actually are in the private sector and you are very focused on your lane. You are a marketer. You're a project manager, what have you. You're not wedded, if you will, to a community. That's okay. But I'm assuming most people on this call are. So what is your current community? What is the non-federal government private sector community that you may want to explore? If you don't want to do that, just share with everyone what kind of organizations you are pursuing. Maybe the type of lane that could fit that a current or new sector, and then make sure to share referrals with each other. And it sounds like people were doing that while I was having my Wi-Fi break. So we will continue to do the more of the networking. So I'm going to go ahead and put you back into breakout rooms just for a little bit here. And it's going to probably be the same rooms that you just came from. So here you go. And if I'm going to assign you if you are not already assigned.
Shira, should the volunteers go to the same
Yes,
room?
go ahead and just accept just hit your breakout, hit your join button. We're not going to overthink it this time. Didn't work too well last time. Elizabeth, are you able to join a group?
Shira, could you please put me back into room 17?
I'm sorry, I can't see everybody's name. What is your name, please? I can't see your name.
Sandra Matson in room
Alexandra.
17.
You were 17.
Yep, thank you.
Alexandra, it looks like you are in 17. Oh, there you are. Okay. All right, so for the sake of the recording, thank you, Kat. You've had some time to look at your lane in your community. I hope you do appreciate why we did that, because employers are so focused on your lane in your community. When they are vetting you, they're looking at those two things first and foremost. So to the extent that you understand where you want to stay or where you want to pivot and with whom you can network to do that is going to really help ease your transition into your new role, whether that's something very similar to what you've done or something different. So now we're going to get very practical and we're going to teach you how to do that. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to look at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is going to be a really good buddy, okay, in this search of yours. Now, I know when I do LinkedIn trainings, and I have done trainings, for 2 hours on this, right? We clearly don't have the time for that, but I am going to do a little bit of a cursory overview so that at least you get some ideas to how you can leverage the search bar. The upper left-hand corner of your LinkedIn page is access to LinkedIn's very ginormous database. It is actually what we recruiters use, and I am a recruiter, not just a coach, what we recruiters use to find you. It is how you can find each other. It is a fabulous way to expand your networking. And I don't just mean your first level contacts. I mean your second levels and even your third levels. You can start populating the search bar with key terms, and I have some specific screenshots for you to show you how to do that, okay? So the first one we're going to do is using LinkedIn to search for new communities. So here we go. So what I did was, in advance of this meeting, I did some searches. And the first one that I did is I just did environment. I know that's one of the many sectors that a number of people on this call might be on. And I highlighted it, right? I just put the word environment. Now I started with a very broad search. Obviously you can narrow this down. You can put in wildlife if you like, or if you could put in clean air or whatever you like. But for the moment, for the sake of discussion, I put in environment, I hit enter, and then I hit the people button. In the upper left-hand corner, there's a people button. And I got a page full of people. I did a screenshot here, and I'm going to focus on this guy, random guy named Jim Harmon. So in his headline, you can see VP Environmental Health and Safety, which otherwise known as EH&S. And if you notice, Jim, and if you can, I know this is very small, but when I opened up Jim's page, and this is why I put an arrow there, in his experience section, you can see where he's worked. Actually, you can see it up here, even in the where it says current, it says Greater Cleveland, it says current, and he works at a company called Associated Materials. So I'm going to click on that, on Associated Materials, and this is Associated Materials. This is their LinkedIn page. It's not their website, it's their LinkedIn page. And what I want to do is I want to do a little bit of a deeper search, because if I'm thinking about, well, how can I pivot from in sort of in my environmental community to a company, a non-federal government private sector company that is in that space, maybe I want to do some research as to who's out there. Maybe I've never even heard of companies like this. So one of the things you want to do is click on, and you can see here the 1,000 to 5,000 employees. It doesn't look like it's hyperlinked, but it is when you actually mouse over it. And when you do that, this is what's going to come up. Associated Materials is going to be up top, and it's going to be page after page, 980 results, lots of employees there. And so it's a lot of people to look through. So what I did was I put in the term project manager. Why that? Well, maybe that's my lane. Maybe I'm a project manager at EPA or at a GovCon or a nonprofit or what have you. And I want to go now, I've siphoned my community off. I found a company. I want to go deeper into that company. So again, so while I'm on this page, Associated Materials, in the search bar, I can do a deeper filter by putting in the term project manager, and now it gives me a new search in that company. And sure enough, Don Liebman and Patrick Kelly are both in the PM world here at Associated Materials. Okay, now that is one of many ways that you can do this. I just did for you sort of a normal sort of flow of how you can do it. But there are all kinds of ways. And you don't have to go into Jim's profile, right, and do all of that. You can just kind of bounce around. You can see, oh, there's Jim and Susan all the way back here, right? There's Jim and Charlotte and Ashley and Brenda and all of the people. And you can just start scanning around and saying, who are these companies? What do they do? You don't even have to go and look for people yet. I'm just trying to give you a flavor of how you can start to mine for new communities, mine for the people who work in those companies, not for new communities, for companies in those communities. And then how you can start to do your research. Okay. So here was the end of that one. And then I did it again. So I put in health. So here, James, Andre, Tricia, right now it happens to be LinkedIn knows me. They know that I'm in the HR world. And so the people who automatically came up were HR people, but that's irrelevant to this conversation. But I at least wanted to let you know that you can do it. You can do it multiple different ways. And so here I did health, right? And then I pulled out one person, Andre. Okay, so Andre works at Luminous Health. And then you know the process, right? I did it again for transportation. You see how this works, right? I pulled up Susan. Susan works for Cambridge Systematics. Never heard of that company, but you know what? She's in federal transportation and she works at that company. So maybe that's a place that I could explore. So I hope you understand that this is the kind of way that it works. I will tell you that when we're done with this piece of it, I'm going to give you a solo opportunity to actually right here on this call, to do a little bit of research yourself, play around with the tool, because I've just done screenshots for you, but I want you to actually apply your learning. And then when you do that, you're going to have another breakout where you're going to talk to your colleagues and say, oh, this is really interesting. And how did this is a really interesting tool. And I've never done this kind of searching before. And this is what I'm finding. So this is a very practical workshop for you to start to do this. Okay. So the second piece is researching a new lane in a new community. So here's what I did. So instead of just doing health or environment or transportation, I put them together. Program manager, health, right? Policy analyst, transportation, whatever it is. You could put your lane with your community. And then here's what happens, right? You hear program manager at HealthNet, clinical program manager at LifeBridge Health. Lots and lots of different ways for you to use LinkedIn for this. I put in marketing with the word sustainability, right? Lane, community. Here, Associate Director, Global Sustainability Marketing at S&P Global. Sustainability Marketing at iBlason LLC. Okay, you see all these things. Now, I want you to notice something, by the way. Notice I did this search, right? I want you to pretend that I'm in my recruiter hat right now. I want you to pretend that I'm looking for a person who is in the marketing lane, because I'm searching for a director of marketing, and I'm doing that search for a sustainability organization or company. I might do that as a recruiter. I might actually put that terminology in there together. I want you to see what LinkedIn did automatically, how their algorithm worked. Notice that the people that came up were people who had those words in their headline. Notice what I just said, in their headline, and it was in the first several words. That's important for you to know, because if you are planning on making a shift, or even if you're not planning on making a shift, if you are planning on staying right in your lane and right in your community, then what you would do is you would want to brand yourself in the LinkedIn headline. You want to make sure that the keywords that directly relate to your lane and to your community are right there in there. And by the way, someone just texted me. If you wouldn't mind putting your one of my volunteers just texted me. If you could put your thought in the chat, or if you feel to open mic, because I won't be able to really check text at this point. Thank you. So making sure that those keywords are there, because you want to think like a recruiter. The recruiters are using these terminologies to find you. All right. Okay. So here it is. So this is your opportunity to do a little bit of a solo exercise. So I'm going to stop share to make it easy for you. And what you're going to do is you're going to do a lane and or community search. You're going to jot down names of intriguing people or organizations, right? You're going to just kind of bounce around a little bit. And then we're going to do a breakout. And in your breakout room, you're going to use your screen share. Everybody has screen share ability. Not everybody has to do it, but maybe a few of you want to. And just kind of report your findings. Okay, this is a new exercise. It's a new thing for a lot of people to do. Afterwards, we're going to have a little bit of time for call outs so you can connect with new content. We're just going to kind of keep things kind of live and flowing. All right. So we're going to go stop share. All right. So I'm going to still keep everything live here. So go ahead and just open your browser, get into LinkedIn, use that search bar, lanes, communities, tool around for a little bit. And I'm just going to give you 5 minutes to do that. Okay. Remember, this could be to stay where you are. If you are a federal employee and you want to go work for an NGO, great, do this search. If you are in an NGO and you want to stay in the NGO world, do this search. It is literally appropriate for any and all pivots of any sort.
Good question. If we
could we do some muting, please?
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's in the cafe.
Actually, if you could do, for anybody who has a question, is a question about the exercise?
Yes.
Okay, sure, go for it.
So the question is, if like I found somebody that I'm interested in connecting with,
yeah,
should I say, hello, my name is Mark Simmons?
Okay, so actually, it's a great question. May I have your name? I can't make that out from your Zoom link.
I'm sorry, Mark Simmons.
It's Mark. Okay, thank you, Mark. It's a great question. I actually am going to address that and after we come back from the break. I have a whole other section on how to reach out to folks. It's a fabulous question, so hold on to that.
I was connecting with them now.
You can do that. You can do that. I have some ideas for you around that. So, but hold tight. Great question.
All right, so I'll connect with them, then I'll create a message later. Is that what
you could? Right? It may not connect quite yet. We'll talk a little bit about that. Okay. But yeah, just hold tight to them. Maybe write down their name.
Okay.
Hold it. Don't do it yet, because
don't
what
do it
she's
yet.
going to tell you.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait. Yeah, you may want to wait until I talk a little bit about that.
First impressions is important. You only get one chance, so you want to do it right.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. Yeah, I don't necessarily. I think you get 2 or 3 chances.
Maybe, but you know.
Yeah, you get
with LinkedIn. By the way, with LinkedIn connection requests, you only have one shot, because once you send it a note, then that's it. It's gone. You can't pull it.
That's true.
Yeah. And by the way, Mark, the messaging suggestions that I have is actually not right after this. It's actually going to come a while later. I have it in a different section, but hold tight. By the end of the presentation today, you will have your answer around that.
Okay, I'll just have to get a pen and write the name down.
Yeah, just write it down and then, you can come back to it. Okay, let's go ahead and keep on going. So now we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about accessing the hidden job market. When I say the hidden job market, I want to frame it this way. Now, this may be shocking to everybody on this call, but this is the reality. Only 3% of job applications turn into meaningful conversations. I want you to sit with that for a second. The job boards are flooded. When I say the job boards, I mean LinkedIn's job board, Indeed, CareerBuilder, pick it. Before the earthquake disruption that we're having now, they were flooded. They are going to be extra flooded now. And here's what's going on. When an employer puts out a job posting and they put it out to quote unquote the whole world, because it is so easy to hit the send button now, and because there's been so much disruption in so many different industries, it is not uncommon, and I am not exaggerating one bit when I say this, it is not uncommon for employers to get 100 to 200 applications in the first 24 to 48 hours, period end. In fact, they will sometimes take down the posting after a few days because they are so flooded with candidates. Now, most job candidates don't know this. Most of you are out there thinking, that's the way to get a job. I've been told for the last 20, 30 years, you just go after the job posting and you hit send. Not anymore. There is a reason why we're going to be sitting here right now and we're going to focus on networking, because 80% of jobs are hidden from the market. Right now, as we speak, there are employers, hiring managers, HR people, recruiters, CEOs who are going to their private networks and looking for you. And they are saying, right? Who do you know that will be a good fit for this job? All the time. You need to be part of that network. It's why I started our conversation with the Lena community, because I need you to have at least a direction as to where you might want to go. Now we're going to go get into the practicalities of how do you want to think about that. So we've done some research, and what I want to help you figure out is how to show up before your resume. That is the most important thing that you can do, particularly if you are making a career pivot. I said that earlier, I'm going to say it again. If you are making a career pivot, you need to minimize the risk of that employer in wanting to even consider you. If there is a job posting out there and you see it, and you see in the qualification section, first 3 or 4 bullets, and it says something to the effect of healthcare experience strongly preferred, environmental experience strongly preferred, please know that these days that almost means required. Not quite literally, but practically it means required. Because if they are posting that job on a job board, there are so many people applying for that job, they're going to sift and sort for the unicorn. They're going to go after they literally mean it's strongly preferred. They will give priority consideration to the people who come from that sector. I'm not saying you're not a wonderfully qualified person. I just mean in terms of the competition, they have the luxury of finding the unicorn. Whereas if you go into the hidden market and you go find colleagues out there, people who know people, who know people, who know you, and are able to vouch for you and your superpowers and say, oh, but you got to consider Mark, right? That's when oftentimes you can get a sort of a creative in. Once I had it happen, I was coaching someone, her name is Allison, and she came from the corporate world. Marriott, she was this, corporate marketing person. And she said to me first call, she goes, sure, want to transition into the nonprofit world. And I go, oh my goodness, there's such a difference, right? But I said, all right, fine. Either way, it's a different, we all know this. There is a big difference between corporate and nonprofit mindset and all of this. I said, all right, great. And she networked and networked and networked and she ran into somebody at the USO, a corporate executive. who said at the time, oh my gosh, Allison, we need you. We need you here. We have a branding issue with our next gen, blah, blah, blah. Created a job for her. Folks, created a job for her. When you network, those kinds of things can happen. When the job isn't even a twinkle in somebody's eye, but they meet you and they see that you're a SME, you're a subject matter expert in something that they need, this could be the time for them to do that. So one of the techniques I want to share with you is something I call the family network. Okay, us coaches, we got all kinds of little formulas and concepts. Lisa, I'm sure you've got them too, right? We all have them. This is mine. Okay, it's called the family network, and I'm sharing this with you because I want it to help. I want to help you think very practically and specifically about how you can leverage the network that you already have. And I break it down into two areas. People who know you, like you, and trust you. In other words, people with whom you have a relationship, either a really close one, not as close, but you're in a relationship. And then secondarily, people who get what you do or want to do. In other words, people who understand your profession, your lane, and or your community. It's two different kinds of people. When there's an intersection, mwah, beautiful, right? Doesn't have to be, but when the two come together, when you know somebody who understands what you do, those are the people who can provide oftentimes the best referrals for you. And so here's how the concept goes. The first one we're going to talk about is the relational. Twin siblings, first cousins, and second cousins. All right. So your twins are the people who know you by voice. These are the people who are going to dance at your wedding. They're going to help you move. You've got these people on speed dial. They know you by, hi, it's me. All right. Those people. And those people, of course, already know you're looking for just your biggest champions. Your siblings are the people who know you by first name. Right. So Lisa and I, right? Lisa called me the other day and we're colleagues. We're both coaches and we were chatting about this and hey, it's Lisa Shear, right? Like it's fine. We're siblings. We'll help each other. We have a relationship, right? First cousins. It's a past relationship. Some might call it a dormant relationship, but it's a warm connection. And so Vern Schellinger, who's on this call, who I called that earlier. So he and I know each other from the HR community. We used to be part of an organization called the HR Leadership Forum. We were both very involved. And we lost touch. He moved to Florida, I did a new thing and we totally lost touch. Well, anyway, this higher moment mastermind call that I've been running now for several years, there was a woman on that call who was doing career coaching with him who happened to mention my group. And he goes, Vern's like, well, who's running it? And she goes, oh, Shira Loza. Oh, Shira, oh my gosh. He gives me a call out of the blue. And I'm like, Vern, Joe, Shira, right? We had one of those old home weeks. It had been 10 years if it had been a day. And the reason why I'm mentioning this to all of you is because I think a lot of you on this call are thinking erroneously that just because you've lost touch, you've lost the relationship. That could not be farther from the truth. There is this expression that we have called a blast from the past. That fits this category. I don't care if it's been 25 years, right? You have not seen this person. They will be delighted to hear from you as long as you left on good terms. And when you go into LinkedIn and you happen to stumble across that person, they could, and especially if they are in your lane or community, they could be a fabulous person for you to reconnect with. Don't think out of sight, out of mind. They might be a little out of mind, but really they can be easily brought back into mind. And then a second cousin would be a past acquaintance, right? Somebody who you were friendly with, not close, right? You might have to actually remind them of who you are. All right. So now let's talk about people who are in your, who get you by profession. This to me is the best referral source, the best. People who do what you do. And you're like, but that's not true. They're my competitors. Oh, no. They are what we call your competimates, right? They're people who, yeah, I'll compete, but no, really, they're collegial. These are the people who are regularly hearing about opportunities that are not right for them, but could be right for you. They're hearing from recruiters. They're hearing from their colleagues. They're hearing about opportunities galore. Doesn't have their name on it, but they know Mark. They know Pete. Hey, thought this, want to toss this one over the fence for you. Network with your twins. Even if they're in the federal disrupted world, that's okay. They're hearing about opportunities too. Make sure to network with people who are in your lane who do exactly what you do. And then it just sort of flows from there, right? Your siblings are some people who do something similar to what you do. First cousins understand what you do. Second cousins are familiar. You understand. And the reason why I'm laying this out is to help maximize your networking. Now, could it be that my next door neighbor, happens to be in IT, Might he have a lead for me one day? Well, I mean, it's possible, but am I going to go focus on my next door neighbor who's an idea? No, it's not where I'm going to network with people who are in my space, right? Vern and I, or Lisa and I, you know, we're kind of in this HR coachy kind of world. We might be able to help each other. Lisa right now is networking with a number of coaches who are actually putting together packages for folks in this community to provide coaching services at a reasonable rate. I mean, yay, great, right? I'm letting you all know that, right? Because Lisa told me that the other day. Yay. Okay. My point is that they are a bunch of competitors who are competimates, right? They're close colleagues and they're trying to help each other to help other people. That's my point. You all can do the same thing. Now, again, these people may be a little bit outside your lane or your community. That's all right. But try to focus your networking efforts there. Okay. And then the same thing here with, again, the community. So I gave an example here. So let's say somebody on this call is from an animal welfare nonprofit. You work for the World Wildlife Fund, or you're kind of in that space, right? Well, your sibling would be an environmental nonprofit. Somebody who kind of breathes similar air, not the same air, but kind of, right? They might hear about an opportunity. And then I'd say a first cousin would be anybody in the nonprofit sector. And then this is going to make you laugh. I put a veterinarian, like, I know, right? What's the chances of a veterinarian being able to help you? But you see what I mean. So the closer you can get to your actual community, the better. So now, Mark, this one's for you. All right. Mark asked a question while we were in the breakout. What do you say when you're in these relationships? How do you kindle or rekindle relationships with your LinkedIn connection? So I'm going to break this down for you because this is kind of important, right? It's like, well, what do you do when you find these people on LinkedIn? So the very first thing I'd like to recommend is that you reconnect with first levels in your lane or your community. And the way to do that logistically, on your LinkedIn profile, go to your My Network tab, okay? And that's going to pull up your connections on your left-hand side. Just go through your connections. Now, if you have a lot of connections, thousands of them, what you can do is hit what's called the All Filters tab. And you can then filter by title, for example. There's also an industry button. Okay, there are ways to filter down, but once you do, okay, and you start figuring out who's who, then my PowerPoint would work. That'd be great. So first of all, not then. Why? Why do it? The reason why is because they actually want to help you. I know. A lot of people on this call are thinking, oh, but I don't want to impose. Not true. These people want to help you, but they also need your help. This is what a relationship is. And when you think about it, yes, you might be looking for an opportunity, but they might be looking for a resource. Maybe you get on this call and you're just chatting it up. Hey, Lisa, how's it been? What's going? How's family? Da, da, da. Somehow Lisa shares this need that she has that you had no idea she was going to share. And it could be something as simple, as simple as I'm looking for a new hairdresser. I don't know. But whatever it is, Lisa has a need and you may have a solution. You may have a referral. So at the very least, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. Well, let's just say necessity is the mother of networking. Like you can use these opportunities for mutual and should use it for mutual benefit. And I want to say something else about this in terms of this idea of, oh, I'm imposing on somebody. I want you to think about the people in your network right now, all the people you have not connected with in a long, long time. They're hearing about opportunities where somebody else has sent them a listserv message, a Facebook message, an employer has said, hey, we're looking for a manager of this, a VP of that. And that person is saying, hey, I wish I knew somebody. If you're that person, comes into their life at the right time, what you're doing is you're being a blessing to that person who wants to help that employer. You never know what those connections can be, just like that. So this isn't just about you putting food on the table. Why do we work? To serve, to solve people's challenges, to solve organizational challenges, right? And those employers are trying to find you. Help them to find you, okay? Really, truly, that's what I mean by this. And so what I want you to think about is after you look at your first level connections, I want you to think about your first and your second levels, okay? You may need to remind them of where you met. That's okay. That's okay. Even if you don't have a close relationship with them, they're still somewhat in their ether. You can say, hey, Mark was, found you on LinkedIn again, just wanted to reconnect, see how you're doing. And I have some messaging around this, by the way, but this is how you want to do it. So now, how do you do this? So first of all, I recommend reach out through LinkedIn and email, both. Why? A lot of people don't check their LinkedIn. A lot of people are going to miss your email. Do both all the time, okay? Double back. Now here's here's for you, sample messages. Now this particular one is for your catch-up call, all right? First levels. Hey, Jane, hope you're well. It's been some time since we connected in person. Wanted to invite you for a Zoom catch-up call, see how you're doing. Also happy to share some developments. Okay, if I toss up some dates, blah, blah. Okay. Now, obviously modify this for whatever feels right to you. But the point behind this is that all you're doing here is you're trying to warm up a relationship that you already had, where they will be hopefully perfectly happy to hear from you. Now, instead of putting in a Calendly link, in this case, you don't want to make extra work for the person. I just recommend that you once they say yes, then you toss out just a few dates. Okay. All right. So that would be my recommendation there. Now let's talk about connecting with second levels. And this is more specifically, what do you do when you've done your LinkedIn search and Mark, you just found a person that you want to connect with? So first of all, why do you do this, right? Because you do share a common interest and hopefully you can be mutually helpful. Again, it's not just you landing a job. You want to do this for mutual benefit. And again, they can share opportunities that aren't right for them, but right for you. And then it can help you with the transition. So here's your sample connection message. Hi, John. We're connected through Mary Smith. Let me pause right there. I want to mention two things. First of all, this only works for a second level because in your second level, you have a mutual connection. That's first thing. This does not work for third levels, only second. Number two, notice what I said here. We're connected through Mary. I did not say Mary referred me because she didn't. We're connected through Mary Smith. That is true. Okay, you're just name dropping in a nice way. Now, I'm reaching out because we share some career interests, industry interests, hoping we might be able to explore synergies. Let me know if you're interested in a Zoom chat and I'll toss out some dates. Now, I do need to put pause on this. There has been a recent phenom. A job seeker brought it to my attention and I got it. I understood why they were saying this. And I'm about to give you not advice, but I want to sort of share with you the phenom so you can make a good decision around how you want to handle this. And here's how it is. There have been a lot of consultants, sales professionals and such that when they do this, they are always putting in a message in LinkedIn. So much so that people on the receiving end many people assume that if there is a message, the person must be wanting to sell them something. As opposed to, you know how it is, a lot of us get the random, just the generic request without any message. It's almost to the point for some people where if you don't do a message, it's almost a little safer. So I'm not going to tell you what to do here. You may want to do some with the message, some without a message. That's totally up to you. I'm giving you the option if you want to. One other thing here, I think it's in the next slide, but I'll just say it right now. So LinkedIn has been changing its business model. They need to make money. A lot of what they give us is free. And so what they've recently done is if you have the free version of LinkedIn, you are limited now. You are limited in only doing 5 personal invitations a month for only 200 characters. 5 invitations, 200 characters per month. That's not a lot of people, right? So if you're an active job search, I would recommend you consider going to premium, but not just any premium, not the career level. You want to go to the business level. I think they call it pro. It's the next level up. It's like $70. I know it's not cheap, but look, you can do it on a month-to-month basis. If you do it, what I'd recommend is doing some searching first and then do the 30-day free trial. But here's the other thing about having the free version. Not only are you limited in your ability to send personalized invitations, you're limited in how many searches you can do. All right. So right now, today, you get off this call, 7 p.m. and you're all excited and you're doing your networking and you're using LinkedIn. All of a sudden, you do search after search, and all of a sudden, LinkedIn's going to have this little boxy thing. It's going to say, you've reached your commercial limit. You've got to upgrade. And they're like, wait, what? There it is. It's telling you, you've just hit the limit. I don't know what that is, but it's not that far into your searching. Point is, once you have sort of gotten your rhythm and you kind of know what you want to do, and you're making the time to do the searching, then and only then would I encourage you to hit the premium button. And then you can do the searching for real. But what you may also want to do, and I recognize this takes more time, is think about redoing your LinkedIn brand before you even do that. Because once you start making connections, so Mark, I'm sorry, I'm picking on you because you asked the question. Mark, when you hit that button, let's say you use this nice language, that person, whoever they are, right, they're going to go back to your profile. Who is this Mark guy? Well, when you know your brand, you know your lane, your community, you have a good about section, and I have some slides on this too on how to boost your brand. Then, right, then it's a meaningful thing, because then they're going to make a better decision as if they want to connect with you. Okay, so you may want to do branding first on your LinkedIn profile, do a little bit of searching so you get the rhythm of it, then hit the free 30-day, and then go head down like you're in grad school, right? Like, I'm just going to pour into this and just make it a real effort. Okay, so
Shira?
yes.
One of the questions is that investing in the premium worthwhile after the 30 days? What do you have to say about that?
Well, let's say this. Thank you. Good question. If you are an active job seeker, I would say yes, because you want to be able to have access to doing these searches. Now, look, if in the 30-day time you have just, cleaned up and reached out to everybody you can think and know, I mean, hey, you may not need it, but it's my humble opinion, because job searching typically takes some time, and you're going to probably want to continue to do search after search after search, I think it's worth it. But I would just check it out for yourself. It may be, look, in those 30 days, you maximize it to its fullest potential. Maybe you're okay and that you don't really need to do more than 5 personalized invitations a month, and you don't need to do searching. But otherwise, if most normal people would probably need to keep it up. That's what I recommend. Great question. Thank you. All right. Now, the next thing is landing an interview. There is a concept that we have in the coaching world called finding an internal champion. What do I mean by that? Well, especially if you're applying for a job on a job board, but remember, that's not going to be your best bet, particularly if that is the case. But even if it's a posting that's not on a job board, you want to find somebody internally who can flag your resume to the hiring manager, to a C-suite person, to a recruiter, and get you noticed. Because the more publicly available this job is, the more competition you have, and you want to float to the top. And there are all kinds of things preventing you from floating to the top, not just the volume of candidates. Your resume, right? Your resume, if it does not have the right keywords in it, guess what? You may not be noticed. The applicant tracking system might not notice you. AI might not notice you. Eyeballs might not notice you. You want to make sure that you have an internal champion who can physically flag your resume, okay? So as I mentioned, right, online job boards are flooded, right? All of these things. So how do you do it? Again, reach out to any of these people. Could it also be someone who's close to the department that you're applying for? And then you want to leverage your first level connection, either, reach out through a LinkedIn message, or you can just mention their name. And I am noticing the time, and I'm going to have to start flying through my slides now. Okay. So everybody buckle in. We're going to go through things a little bit quickly. Right here, I am not going to read these for you. These are going to be, as I mentioned, on the, I'm going to have the recording. I'm going to have another, now 2 links, because we ended up breaking up the recording, but I'm going to have a PowerPoint link in the slide. Ronnie, would you go ahead for those folks who came a little late? If you could put in the link to my job search page on my website, where you can find a whole bunch of recordings, and this one is going to be in there. Okay. All right, so we're going to fly through this. And by the way, real quick, if you want to send a first level, an email to a first level contact, See, Vern is there. You're going to open up the person's first level, your profile, and then right down here underneath their name is the contact info button. And oftentimes there is their email address. Okay. And then I have another, some more concepts here. All right. We're going to jump into resumes because that's one of the things that's, I think, important for a lot of people. All right, here we go. Fly through this. So customizing your resume for opportunities. This cannot be overemphasized enough. You cannot, these days, cannot have simply a generic resume. Employers are focused on keywords. The keywords that match the job opportunity as close as possible. You want a resume that does this. And here are the main areas that recruiters are scanning for, okay? Now, there are others as well, but I just put down some of the highlight ones. They want to know, does your career headline, and when I say career headline, I mean underneath your name and so forth, right? And by the way, this is not a deep dive resume discussion. I'm just giving you some of the, I think, just the top highlights. But underneath your name and such, my opinion, every resume writer is a little different in this. My opinion is you have a career headline that's bold. I mean, it's like 16 point, like really stands out. That your career headline matches the job title. This is what a recruiter is looking for. They're looking to see, are your core functional skills visible? And when I say the functional skills, I mean the skills in the job description. Now, watch this, guys. I am not talking about your behavioral skills. I'm not talking about you being a strategic thinker and a relationship builder and analytical and all of those wonderful things that I'm sure you are. They will focus on those in the interview, but in the resume, they want the functional stuff, project management, strategic planning, right? Board relations, all these things. They want to make sure that you're aligned. And so what you do is you go to the job description, you look in the first few bullets of the responsibility section, the first few bullets of the qualification section. Now, read everything, but I'm just really highlighting for you those two areas. That's what's mostly top of mind for these employers. That's oftentimes where they're going to put a lot of those key skills is in the top of the responsibilities as well as in the top of the qualifications. And you want to especially look at those areas and see where you can align your resume. I'm mentioning this as the resume chronological. The only reason why I'm mentioning this is because some job seekers do their resumes in a functional format. I am not one of those recruiters who believes in the functional resume because as a recruiter, most recruiters are looking to see where you did what. If all you have is the top page of your resume that has all of these key skills and key accomplishments, we can't mix and match if you just have this little work history at the bottom. So a lot of recruiters are looking for a chronological resume, but underneath that, accomplishment that are labeled with key skills. What do I mean by labeling? I'm going to show you that in a second for one of the resume templates that I work with, where you have an accomplishment and that it has a key skill bolded, so that when the recruiter scans down the page, well, remember they scan, they don't read, they scan. You want to make sure that those words are highlighted. Is the resume concise? And for all of my federal employee colleagues here, if you're going to hear it here first, or you're going to hear it here for the 10th time, private sector, and this is all except for GovCon, okay? They were different. But most everybody else is not looking for that multiple page resume where you list, everything you've ever done. It's concise, 2 to 3 pages. Could it go a little longer? Yes, but don't try not to. About 2 to 3 pages. And typically on that third page, if you need to do a third page, maybe your awards or certifications or publications or things of that nature. And is there sectoral relevance? So I'm going to share with you one more example real quick. I mentioned that attorney turned writer. Well, I'm going to give you another one that was a sectoral, a lane change within a sector. So years ago, I was working with a woman named Carla, and she was kind of the advocacy world. And so she said, oh, but I want to go into operations. I'm like, all right, what are we going to do here? Well, we found accomplishments that she had within her advocacy world that were operationally related. Budget management, team development, technology, all of these things. We did accomplishment stories. We labeled everything with technology, budget, event planning, whatever it was. And at the top of her resume, this is how we pivoted her. We said, operations-minded association leader. We kept her community, but we changed the lane into an adjective. It's true. She's not a COO. She wasn't an ops person, but she was operationally minded. So I'm mentioning that to you because also the fact that she's an association person was sectorally relevant. And when she networked, she got a job. She was able to pivot with that resume within her community. And as I mentioned, employers are not looking for your behavioral skills in the resume. They're looking for that in the interview. All right. So I'm just going to give you a very quick example. This is a resume template that I use when I do resume writing. We all have different versions of this, but this happens to be mine. And you can see, you know, a headline at the top, see association, that's the community, education executive, that's the lane, some keywords at the top. People do this in different ways. And then you can see here, right, for accomplishments, a substantive accomplishment with a label, with the skill label. And you're welcome to take, if you want to take a picture of this, that's totally fine. I'll just wait for 1 second. You can take a picture of this as well. But the point of it is that those labels are customizable. Start with one generic resume, and then all you got to do is tweak the labels, more or less, when you're customizing your resume. Okay, I'm putting in a technical version here for anybody on this call that's in the techie world. Most technical recruiters are looking for something heavy, tech, right up top. Skill. Oops. And then, but you can still have in the accomplishment section, you can still have a nice substantive, you know, bullet, but again, it's going to be labeled. All right. So that is the extent of me talking about this part of resume writing. I'm going to just give a quick nod to the applicant tracking system that we know and love. Yeah, I know Lisa's shaking her head like, yeah, no. No recruiter likes their applicant tracking system. Please know, as hard as it is for you to get through it, it is very hard for them to find you. I am not going to spend any time on this. I'm going to share. There is a link. There's a million links. There's YouTube videos. All you got to do is Google how to create an ATS-friendly resume. You'll get more information than you can shake a stick at. All right, so now we're going to shift into a very modern 2025 conversation, and that is using AI, okay, to tailor your resume. And we're actually going to bring to the stage here in just a minute a live example. Lisa referred a gentleman named Michael Woodward, and I'll introduce him to you in a minute, to show you how you can use AI. He's actually not going to use ChatGPT. He's going to be talking to you about Claude. But I want to put a couple of caveats in here first. The first thing is this: AI is simply a tool to get you started with customization. It is not to write your resume for you. You will have to upload things. You will have to create your own accomplishment stories, hopefully branded accomplishment stories. You need to ensure sectoral relevance. You need to edit the document to make sure that it doesn't hallucinate. AI does that. And actually, Michael is going to give you a little bit of an example of how to, what to put in there to make sure that it doesn't make stuff up. You need to ensure that it really matches the role. Okay, so here is Michael. Thank you, Michael, for coming to the stage. And you can go ahead and take it away. And I would just, I'm going to share with everybody, Michael's going to talk for about 10 minutes. I'm not going to interview him exactly, but he knows that I'm going to interject a couple of times and say, oh, Michael, can you explain this or explain that? So, Michael.
All right.
I'm going to stop share so that you can, because he's going to do an actual demonstration.
Okay. Here we go. Thanks, everybody. I'm Michael Woodward. I've got a presentation here showing you how to use Claude AI to tailor your resume and cover letter. You're going to need a paid subscription to Claude, and I'll tell you why. Claude AI is free, but it's very restricted, and it has a less advanced model. It also has no access to something called projects, which is really what you're going to benefit from if you do the advanced. You'll have to re-upload your information over and over for every job you want to apply to if you don't have projects. Claude Pro is $20 a month. It saves you time and effort in uploading. I use Claude AI and not ChatGPT because I find the output from Claude AI to sound more human. To get started, you would get your Claude account. The professional account would allow you to have this project section here. So you would click on projects. You would click on create projects. Then you would name your project something like job search. And you can then hit create project. And now we're in our job search project. Anything I put in here, it's going to use the same project knowledge base that we're going to add here in just a moment. So for project instructions, I have to tell the AI how I want it to act, okay? AI by default is trying to be super helpful for you, but so helpful sometimes it will lie, and it will do anything it can to sort of make you happy. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it some instructions. We're going to say, first of all, never lie or make up facts. I know you shouldn't have to tell it that, right? but of course we do. The second thing is that we're going to explain about ATS systems. I suspect anything you generate will be looked at by AI. Ensure the resume and cover letters are targeted to get through those systems without being flagged. Also, I am over 55 and I am worried about ageism. So I put in a little thing here about making sure that I keep ageism in mind as you tailor my documents, not to put anything in there that might give away too much or make people think that I am somehow older than I am. The fourth one is formatting. I don't like when they use best regards and sign off. It sounds too automated. I don't say my current role at APM since I left in 2024, and use periods at the end of bullet points. Just a formatting thing that I've been doing. And then last but not least, I say, let me know if there is an obvious mismatch between the job description and my skills. Okay, so now I save those instructions. Every time I ask Claude something in the job search project now, it will remember these things and it will continue to do those things for me. Now I'm going to need my copy of my resume. So I'll go and I'll upload my resume. Take a second to find it here. There it is. Okay. Now you notice Claude will allow you to have a very large amount of capacity for this particular project. That's only 1% of it I've just used now. Now we're going to upload something called SOARs. Some of you may know this in a different way as STAR, situation, task, action, result. I use SOARs, which is situation, obstacle, action, result. I find that this is a good way to tell my story. So in addition to having my resume, I've written a whole bunch of these SOARs that help fill in the backstory of what I'm doing. That gives the AI a little bit of ammunition, if you will. Whenever there is a job description that comes through, it can match those SOARs to whatever's going on in the job description, and then we can then try to make sure that we're tailoring for that. An example of a SOAR for me was early in my career at APM, when we were a small team of 8 staff members, our journal manager suddenly unexpectedly passed away during cancer treatment. The obstacle was we suddenly lost not only a beloved colleague, but also her institutional knowledge and no transition period or documentation. The action was that I stepped in to learn the journal management process from scratch, collaborated with our publisher, established interim editorial service, worked closely with the journal editor, redesigned workflows, and ensured continuous publication. The result was we maintained uninterrupted journal operations during the challenging transition. It led to my long-term oversight of APM's journal operations, where I continued to build and improve upon the foundation that I created during that period. That amount of that little section there could also be used as something that I could speak to when asked questions in an interview. Tell me about a challenging situation that you encountered. So once you're in Claude here in the project knowledge, I keep my SOARs in Google Drive. You can either upload them from your hard drive or you can upload them from Google Drive. I'm going to add them from Google Drive here. And that can be updated in real time. So you can go over to Google Drive, update it, and then come right back.
Michael,
Question?
so
Yeah.
the question was about what the SOAR acronym. It's situation, obstacle, action, result. You
That's
might have,
correct.
people would hear it as situation, task, action, result, STAR, car, challenge, action, result, CAB, what I use, challenge, action, benefit. They're all the same things. It's just telling a story, right? So sort of framing it. And notice how Michael did this. He told enough detail, but he also shared it in a pretty concise way that he could actually repeat in an interview. And by the way, while I have the mic here, while you're doing your SAR stories, SOAR stories, what have you, those are also fabulous ways to really listen for themes of who you are, your behavioral skills. I'm gonna give you a real quick example. So I don't just write resumes, I write LinkedIn profiles. And there was this gentleman, he knows I use his name. His name is Brian McLaren, and you can look him up on LinkedIn. And he is a CIO. And when I was doing his resume stories, there was something very interesting that came out. Now notice I said CIO. Michael's in technology. I know Pete's in cyber. We got a number of tech people on this call. And I know Michael's a relational guy, and so is Pete. Not every tech person is, right? Okay. Brian also is a very, very relational guy. And all of the stories that he kept giving me, cross-functional collaboration, inclusive decision-making, and all these things, I said, oh my gosh. I said, this is a fabulous brand for you, Brian. So I wrote the about section with a whole relational lens to show people his differentiator as a candidate. So it's a really, really good idea to sit down and think through what are your greatest accomplishment stories and the ones that fit your brand, so you can figure out for yourself what makes you unique as a candidate. Leverage that in LinkedIn, leverage that in your resume, leverage that in your interview, and also in your networking. Okay, Michael, back to you.
Absolutely. So when we're in Claude and we've added our project knowledge, now we're going to go over to how can I help you today? Now this is called a prompt window. Basically, you can prompt the AI to do whatever it is you want it to do. In this case, we're going to say, I'd like to apply for this position. Please review the job description and tailor a resume and cover letter using my project knowledge. Now, I went out and found a, whoops, it's gone. I went out and found there we go, a job description that is sort of up my alley. So I'm going to cut and paste that into Claude. Now, if you paste a large amount of information, Claude is going to show it as like a little box underneath like that. Don't worry, it's still got all the information. You just hit up, and then it will dynamically build your resume and cover letter based on the information that you uploaded to the project area. So my resume was in a specific format that Lisa and I had developed, and Claude is actually taking that exact same format and it's using it, but plugging things in to match the description of the job that I put in. Now it's working on the cover letter. Now, this is not something I would verbatim put into Word and send off. I need to go through this and make sure that Claude is still telling the truth and that maybe it didn't misunderstand some of my stories. In one case, I found earlier that I told it that I built tools that assisted 400 people, 400 committees with doing work, and it misinterpreted that and said that I was on 400 committees. I had to go in and tweak that wording a little bit so it better understood that and make sure that it didn't somehow tell it that I was on 400 committees. But you can see here it says volunteer management system supporting 400 committees. That's a better way of putting that. If you don't like the way that it says something, if you think that it's inaccurate, you could certainly highlight it and you can say maybe administration and operational support. You can go in and you can say, improve this. And you can say, what do you want to improve? You could say, highlight my problem solving skills. And it can rewrite the cover letter to highlight whatever it is that you'd like.
Remember too, for a cover letter, just like with a resume, it needs to be tailored to the job. You've got to look at the qualifications. You've got to look at the responsibilities. You know, AI may or may not catch everything. You're still a human. There's all, as we say, you got to be the human in the mix here. See what it captured. Did it capture the right things? And the other thing too is, particularly for those of you who are mission driven, which is probably most of you on this call. If you are applying to an organization that is a mission driven group, whatever they are, oftentimes you want to use your opening paragraphs to lean into your mission-driven alignment. Claude may or may not do that for you. You know your personal story, right? Like, what is it about that mission that really speaks to your heart or your background or what have you? And the only other thing I would say is that with and I'm sure a lot of people are using AI enough now to know, AI has a tone. Has a tone. Employers are picking up on this tone. And they're like, a lot of times they can spot this, okay? So you especially want to go in there and put your voice into it, just to make sure that it really kind of sounds thing. Keith said, is what we see here generally too wordy? You know, I mean, I think that's all a matter of opinion. But I would say, look, from a cover letter perspective, a one-page cover letter is most normal thing in the world. I think more importantly, it's not even just, is it too wordy? Is it on target? That's more to the point. It's not about the words, it's about the content. Okay, so all the employers trying to see if they look at the cover letter. By the way, cover letters are only read 2% of the time. but they are read 2% of the time. And if they're read, you know, you want something that actually sounds decent and is related and supplements what's on your resume. You never want to put anything in a cover letter that you're not already saying in the resume that relates to the job, because your resume has to stand on its own 2 feet. Your cover letter is just frosting on that cake, and it highlights some certain things and emphasizes things.
One thing you can do to avoid that sounds like an AI thing is you can give it samples of your writing and update it to the project area. You can say, here's a sample of my writing. And then when you're writing your cover letters, you can say, make sure that this has the same voice as my writing sample. And it will actually learn your writing sample and duplicate it. It's very good at that. You remember that one of the things I said to it was, let me know if there's an obvious mismatch between the job description and my skills. It gives me the strengths of my application based on my skills that it knows about, but it also gives me areas that I need to maybe address and explain a little bit more about, because maybe it doesn't know what my skills are in these specific areas. So I find this to be great. Over here, you can do copy contents, paste it into a Word doc, make sure that it fits your format, make sure that everything is the right length, and then send it off.
Fabulous. Michael, thank you. Claps for
Absolutely.
Michael. Appreciate you very much. All right. So we're going to continue rolling here because we only have 40 minutes left. And I've got more content, but I'm going to be breezing through a lot of this because I do want to actually have time for questions. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do quickly, we're going to talk about LinkedIn branding. So as I alluded to this earlier, that your LinkedIn brand is very important, right? Because you've got eyeballs watching it and you really want to be consistent with your branding. And here's a couple of tips for you. All right. So first of all, you want keywords that are related to your industry or profession, to your lane or your community. It's super, super important. Can't emphasize that enough. You don't want to waste your headline on things like seeking new opportunities or some sort of tagline that describes your soft skills and how you think. You need to be keyword focused. Think, if you were a recruiter looking for you on LinkedIn using the search bar, what keywords, what title or community or both would you be looking for to find you? The analogy I use is Amazon. If you were looking for an energy efficient refrigerator on Amazon, in the initial search bar, you would not put the word energy efficient. Of course not. You get 50,000 appliances. You start with refrigerator. Then you go down and now you start looking for some of the deeper key terms. It's the same thing with LinkedIn. They start at the high level with the job title. Then when they get the narrow down the search, now they're going to look for things that are going to be more specific or even within the community. So crafting a compelling about section, I'm going to mention that in a second. I'm going to show you an example. Making sure that you flesh out your experience. I'll show you an example of that. I'm not going to really talk right now about skills and endorsements because we don't have time. All right, but I am going to go into writing a compelling about section. Now, this is my particular style. I'm not saying you have to do this, but I want to give you all an option that is for your about section that is not just what I call a vanilla bio. That is not just the 3 or 4 lines. I've got X years of experience in this profession or what have you, and here's a bunch of my skills. That doesn't really differentiate you. What does is speak to, in my opinion, is speaking to who you serve, how you serve, why you serve. What is the problem that you are, or problems that you are trying to help people solve? Now, whether that's in your lane, whether that's in your community, or whether that's in both. So it's really about your value, okay? And so I'm just going to put this up here. I'm not going to take the time to read it because we don't really have time, but this is an example of, you know, one of the LinkedIn profiles that I've written that really kind of, it's compelling, right? An ounce of risk mitigation is worth a pound of profit. You can be cute, it's fine. Or you can start with, you know, I am a such and such that does a such and such. You want to try to open up with something a little compelling and then really speak to the problems that you solve. And here, like I put tools in my toolkit, that does have, you know, key skills, but also a little bit of how she does it, right? Kind of what her approach is, putting in your leadership style. By the way, the reach me at the bottom, I don't do this anymore where it has the @ sign to avoid, if you want to put your email in, which I do recommend these days because it is easier for recruiters to connect with you, don't use the @ sign. Put your first part, so this would be SWLevy24, and then you put -AT- and then Gmail. So the -AT- is the equivalent of the @ sign. Another profile, I don't know this individual, but you can see at the top, right, it says project manager. So his title is right there. He's got his certifications, particularly those of you who are in technology, and you've got a lot of certs. You want to make sure that it's in your headline. This is an example of a fleshed out experience section. This is one of my clients. And, you know, you have, right, it's very similar to the resume. You've got your experience, you've got some job description, and you've got some labels. Although I do usually recommend not to put the labels in here so that you can customize the resume, and your LinkedIn actually would be static. All right, we're going to breeze through interviewing again for the sake of time, because I do want to be able to answer questions. Here's what I want to say about interviewing. All right. I recently gave a presentation at Career Confidence about this, and I want to help folks understand something. When you are interviewing, this is not the positionality. It is not that the employer is here and you're here. To look at my hands. It's not that they're here, and it may feel that way. It is not that way. You're here. You are the other side of this equation. You want to be interviewing for mutual benefit. They got a problem. You got a solution. You want to let them know how you can make their life better. That's your job. And when you emotionally, mentally can get yourself to be in an equal position, all of a sudden things change. They're like, oh, this is a thought partner. Oh, this is somebody who knows what they're doing. This is somebody who can help us move our mountains. Think here, not here. So here is what employers really want to know, okay? They want to know, can you solve our urgent problems? Can you do it? Now, if you are making a community change rather, pivot into a new community, look, you're not going to have as much expertise, especially in the private sector, but you may absolutely know about the broader sectoral challenges that company is facing, and maybe you can bring some of your Fed knowledge to them to help them solve those problems. Do you understand their sector, right? Again, do you come from it? Can you fit with our culture? Now that's more on a personal level. And do you really want the job? Is it the right level for you? Is it the right scope for you? Are we right for you? Okay. So they're going to be looking, they want to know other things than this, but this is sort of an overview. All right. So make sure that you read the job posting thoroughly when you're preparing. All right. What problems does this employer want you to solve? That's going to be usually found in your summary section. What are the key responsibilities in those first few bullets? They're going to put what's most important first. What are the required skills, the preferred skills? Which boxes do you check? Which boxes do you not check? What do you need to overcome in an interview to address the objection before it's even there? And again, do you really want it? You know, I like to say, don't fall into the halo effect. And the halo effect, or psychologists might call it selective perception, is a lot of times job candidates, in fact, I wouldn't say a lot of times, I'd say almost every time, because we're human beings. We tend to do this. And I know it because of my coaching clients who send this stuff to me all the time. And you might see a job description and you might go, oh my goodness, that's my job. And why are you saying that? Because psychologically, your eyeballs are zeroing in on what I'm calling bullet number 5. Bullet number 5. It's a gorgeous bullet. Oh, it's got me written all over it. It's got my name. It's my everything. Guess what? Your eyeballs have now glossed over inadvertently bullets 1, 3, 7, 9, and 12. And so you're not necessarily reading what's actually there. Read the job description. Walk a mile in the recruiter's shoes. What are they actually saying? I did that with somebody yesterday, and she brought me this job description, and I said, did you notice this particular section where it says they actually want someone who wants to lean into advocacy work? And she's like, all she saw was like the fundraising, but she didn't see the I'm like, it was right there, but she just didn't see it because she has a proclivity, as all human beings do. We see often what we want to see, what feels comfortable to us. And oftentimes we don't see what we don't want to see. And I really want to encourage everybody to be as objective as you possibly can for their sake, for your sake. You want to interview for the right opportunities. You don't want to waste your time or their time. You want to actually see what's there also for your sake when you onboard. Because if you don't really read, then maybe the interview is only going to focus on the stuff you love and not the stuff you don't. You get into the job, you're like, what did I just land into? Really understand what they want you to, what they need from you. Okay, so moving on. All right, I have a whole bunch of research tips here that I don't have time to go through, but you can certainly find it on the recording, around how to research if the sector is being disrupted and key challenges and insights that you might have. Really deep dive into their website, about their competitors. Again, if you are coming from the federal government, you're going to go work for the real private sector, not just GovCon. Look, they are, and even GovCon, they're profit focused. Let's just be very straight about it. They're focused on their business. They're focused on increasing their margins, and they need you to get that mindset. Okay, that they are thinking about their competitors. I also recommend that you research employees on LinkedIn, like we shared, but in interview prep, right? And see if you can find their job description, see if you can find anything about them. Maybe you can do a little bit of an org chart, kind of position people and kind of get to know them a little bit. And then also figure out if you can find an internal champion. And imagine you wrote the job description, right? How well do your skills align? What accomplishment stories can you pull out? Again, do you have the industry background? And if not, what kind of insightful questions can you ask? And again, I'm breezing through all of this, right? I like to say that interviews are like the Olympics. Okay, you're all qualified people if you're going to actually get to an interview, but are you the best fit? So accomplishment stories that align with what you love to do and your ability to solve their problems. Very, very important. You can lean into something you love and it actually can solve the problems. They're going to be happy people. Share your enthusiasm for their mission, if appropriate. And I like to say play tennis, not racquetball. What I mean by that is that in a game of racquetball, which is what normal interviews are, they got the ball and you're the wall, and they're cueing and you're A-ing, and you're cueing and you're A-ing. It's not a conversation. Tennis, they cue, you A, you cue, they A. And all of a sudden, right, you're going back and forth and you're turning it into a conversation. So one of the ways to do that is when they cue and you A, and you got to A. Well, after you A, think, what did they just cue me about? Can I actually follow on with that question and ask them an intriguing, insightful question back to them? Yeah. To keep it going, keep it flowing. So you're basically demonstrating your critical thinking skills by following up with your strategic questions about the role or about the organization. Okay, compensation. Take a couple minutes on this. This is always the big conversation, and we all have different ways of handling this, but I'm going to share with you my lens on this. So here's the two sides of the aisle. Your job is to get the highest salary, and their job is to negotiate the most reasonable. They're making a good business decision. You're making a good personal decision. You are the other side of this equation. It's very much like buying and selling a house, right? One wants to get as much as possible. One wants to pay as little as possible. It is the exact same thing. Now, we've got some things going on here. And the first is thinking about if the salary is posted. Because of pay equity laws in a lot of states now, a lot of states require their employers to post a range. It may not be a realistic range, but it's a range, which is a whole different story. A lot of people check the box and they just put 100,000 to 200,000 because they're checking the box. I'm not going to talk about that, but a realistic range, if they post it, do ask for, if appropriate, do ask for the top end if you believe that it's warranted. Please know, hidden little tip here, okay? There's typically about a $10,000, what I call the in parenthesis number, behind the number that they posted. Not always, but often. And it's there. And what they're trying to do is, I'm going to make up a number. I'm going to say that they post the salary as 110 to 130. Okay. You can typically go to 140. You don't know that, but you can. Now you can't go to 175, but you can often go to 140. So what you want to do is when they say to you, hey, are you in our range? You can say, well, yes. However, wondering if you have a little bit of flex room there. I was kind of looking more for 140, presuming that's appropriate for you, right? And sometimes like, oh, okay. And they usually won't say no. They'll boldly say, well, we're happy to consider that. But if it's not posted, here's a formula that I like. And the first is you've got to select an ideal target salary. How do you do that? There's lots of ways. There's Glassdoor, there's salary.com, there's talking to HR people, there's talking to colleagues. There's a lot of ways to think about where do you fit. Now, of course, the government and nonprofit sector and GovCon and private sector, non-federal, all have different kinds of ranges for all kinds of reasons, national scope, local scope, size of company, it's all over the place. But you want to do your research and try to figure out for you, where might be that ideal target. Then here's a phrase that I like to use when they say to you, so what are you looking for? Which some people still do. and I say, I'm seeking a total cash compensation package in the blank range. Now, here's what I mean by that. I mean, you put in one number in that blank, not two. I did say range, but I don't really mean the word range. I mean like in that direction. So I'm seeking a total cash compensation package in the $130,000 range. Okay, because if you put in both numbers, which is the number they're going to give you, everybody all at once, the low number, right? Of course. So you want to put in that 130. Now, what'll happen is if that number is out of their range, you say 130, they can only pay 115. What they will then say to you is, oh, do you have it? We can only, then they'll let you know, we can only pay 115. That's our top. Do you have any flexibility? At which point you can say, oh, well, look, I'm seeking total compensation package. Let's talk about benefits and all the things, right? Otherwise, if you are in their range, they're going to say, great, you're in our range. They'll just hear that one number and they'll move on. Okay. So this wraps up all of our sort of traditional work, talking about jobs. Now, I noticed in the Menti question that I asked in the very beginning, I had asked one question, is anybody interested in self-employment? Now, at the time, we didn't have that many people on the call, so we didn't have any yeses to that. I have to imagine that there are some people on this call that are at least open to the idea of it. And I'm about to talk about this for a minute, maybe more than a minute, but I need to frame this up. All right. So first of all, let me tell you what I'm talking about, what I'm not talking about, and why I'm talking about it. So here's what I am and I'm not talking about. I am talking about self-employment that is not about being a 1099 for a government contractor. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about all the other kinds of ways that you can be self-employed. Being a consultant, being what's called a fractional consultant, where you're like a part-time executive. I mean, starting an Etsy channel. I mean, doing gardening. I mean, you name it. There are part-time bookkeeping, event planning, tons and tons and tons of opportunities out there for you to do work that leverages your lane and or your community in creative ways that has nothing to do with the federal government. Okay, this can happen. Am I telling you you have to? Of course not. But I do want to encourage people to be thinking a little bit out of the box. At the very least, be thinking about freelance work, gig work, supplemental income. Right now, when you are job searching, if you can think about repurposing any of your Ing skills to just say to your next door neighbor, the people you go to the gym with, wherever, and say, look, I'm in job transition, but look, I have some extra skills that I'm happy to put to use. I'm a really great event planner. I can do taxes. I can do whatever, okay? Earn a little bit of extra income while you're doing your search. It is perfectly acceptable. I'm not saying it has to be a full-blown business, but a lot of people don't even think this way. And yet there are so many people in your immediate circle that need your skills. And you never know what could happen with that. I'm going to give you one quick story. So years ago on the Food Network, there was a Food Network star. Her name was Paula Deen. I know she fell out of favor, but I'm not going to talk about that. But Paula Deen, okay. She's the lady who likes to cook with a lot of butter. She's Southern. Anyway, her story is that she used to be an agoraphobe. She was fearful of leaving her house. You know, a lot of people don't know the story. And so she had 2 teenage boys, and she says, I got to earn a living. So she said to her boys, okay, there's an office building down the street. She knew how to cook. She says, I'm going to make sandwiches and you're going to go sell them. And they did. And her food was amazing. So good that she ended up starting a business. And of course, got enough confidence, left the house. Paula Deen became a name. Okay. But that was the necessity is the mother of invention. If she can do it, anybody can do it. Okay. Just think about the skills that you have that can be repurposed, even if it's just for a little bit of income, but you never know. It could turn into a full-blown business. And I'm going to share with you one more story, then I'll change slides. About a week ago, I was doing a little networking call with a woman. This woman is 82 years old. Notice what I just said, 82 years old. She gets on the call and she says, guess what my business is? She goes, I weed people's gardens. I said, you what? She goes, I just love it. I'm a weeder. I got 5 clients in my community. She goes, I'm just sitting there and I weed all day long. She goes, I love it. And then she called me because she goes, and I also want to start a bookkeeping business. She's 82. Okay. Anybody can do this. All right. So I'm hoping I don't see who are our participants still. I'm hoping you stay on this call. I'm not going to go deep into these slides because I know a lot of you aren't going to need me to do that. If you do though, I do want to let you know, I have another community service project. It's called BoomerWorks. And if someone could put this in the chat, that would be helpful. Boomerworks.org, BOOMERWORKS.org. We've been running this for a number of years. It's a free community service. We tailor our work toward the 50+ community, although everybody's invited. We have monthly educational programs, and all we do is teach people how to re-career into self-employment, how to conceptualize your business, networking, marketing, social media, the whole 9 yards. This presentation I'm about to share with you, super lightning fast, because we don't have a lot of time, is actually the kind of the one of the main slide decks that I use in this. If you go to my website, and Ronnie, I need to tap you again. The link, because we've had new people since we put this link in the chat. The link that goes to my video page, okay, there is a video on there. It says Boomers Going Solo, but it could be for anybody. And it's a version of this presentation. So if you want deeper, you can go there. If you want to join our community, we have, again, free monthly educational programs. You're welcome. So ready, set, I'm just going to fly through this. All right. So I talk about a little bit about the stability of the market. As we know, stable jobs come and go. We all know this, right? Things are changing. Self-employment to me can be a form of stability. People think, oh, it's unstable, but actually there can be a lot of income. And so to me, it's a freedom to reinvent, flexible schedule, pursue your passion, all kinds of reasons to do it. Again, I'm flying through this, right? I talk about the difference between freelance and small business. Freelance is kind of that gig work. Small business is when you have a brand, like me, Lisa, Vern on this call, right? We have a small business. We're not just doing freelance work. We have a brand around it. All these different ways that you could do self-employment. Any of these or other ones, I didn't put GovCon on here because that's not really where we're going right now in our community. And then you'll notice this, the ing and the again. You can take that ing skill and you can make the the small business. And so super quick story. I was coaching a woman years ago named Jacqueline. She was a nonprofit executive. She came and she's like, she thought she just wanted a regular W-2 job. And I did the Passiontivity with her. We looked at the high engagement box and she had like 10 things in there. And I said, hey, Jacqueline, do you have any ings that you would want to become an meaning something that's really highlighted? She goes, oh my gosh. She goes, donor events. I said, what do you mean? She goes, you don't understand. I am the best donor event planner you've ever met. She goes, people laugh, they cry, people come to me and other nonprofit executives take advice from me. Like, she loved this thing. I said, oh, Jacqueline. I said, do you think you may even want to start a business around this? She hadn't even thought of that. She goes, yes. HumanImpactEvents.com was born. There you go, right? You take an ing that you love, you can potentially turn it into a small business. And then again, focus on a community whose sectors you know well. So I have a really quick model for you, okay? You take the ing skills that you enjoy, you figure out any you look at your passions and hobbies as well as your community. You think about what you can monetize, and I'm just giving you some quickie little basic examples. Ing is the event planning, could be the conference planner, you're a social impact person, and there you go, conference planning for donor fundraising events. May or may not be the right one, but just as an example. You're accounting, budgeting, finance person, you want to be an accountant or a bookkeeper or whatever. You love volunteering with elderly populations, boom, outsource financial services for elder care organizations. Okay, just some examples. I then mentioned the different kinds of businesses. There's B2C, which is business to consumer, where you target a demographic, B2B, which is business to business, where you target an industry. And then I have all these different questions around how do you focus there, about focusing on your target market and the urgent problems they want to pay you to help them solve and so forth. Again, we're flying through this. We can go a lot deeper if you ever want me to. And I gave a very quick example. I made this up. We called this Pat's Coaching Services. His target is small senior leaders in accounting firms. We figured out his urgent problems. Again, this is a made up person. What products does he want to, service? He wants to do executive coaching. And then how is he going to market? And then I mentioned, some of the ways he'll do that. Okay. Okay. And then here are some ways to get your business started, or even if you want to do freelance work. I put some examples here. And by the way, on our boomerworks.org site, there is a resources, I think it's the resources tab. Anyway, we have a tab where you can actually find tons and tons of these kind of freelancey on-demand websites. Okay. And then I just put some other opportunities, score.org, free. SBA has work opportunities. Talk to other people in your network who do gig work or are solopreneurs. If you do want formal coaching, I am a small business coach. Angela Heath, my colleague, she actually has a new business to help to using AI to launch your business. So kind of think what Michael did, but helping you to do it for starting a business. And then here's Boomerworks. Okay. All right. So last thing, we're going to wrap up and then we're going to, great, 5:45. And then we're going to try to entertain some questions. So please, if you feel comfortable, sign up to network and or join a Higher Vision community pod. So Ronnie, back to you. You can go ahead and put that Google Doc back into the chat. Again, of course, no obligation here, but we do want to create a community for our Higher Vision community, not only for the people on this group, but we are trying to create an initiative here that is going to help the community in general to connect with each other. So again, the intention is to have weekly support groups, like I'm going to call it Higher Vision Central. We'll start with one, we're going to start with one meeting, a weekly meeting. I'm thinking Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. And then off of that, hopefully, these little community pods will start to evolve, again, like Higher Vision Environment, Higher Vision Healthcare, Higher Vision International Development. And I have some volunteers behind the scenes that are going to help me with the infrastructure, but this is a great thing to do. I think it was Susan who, somebody mentioned to me in a text, maybe adding a column. And if one of you wants to do this, it's all editable. If anybody wants to add a column on the right side that says, are you open to networking? That's great, because then people can know whether or not you're somebody that wants to be contacted. But this is for networking purposes, as well as to let us know if you want to be part of the Higher Vision community. Please check out the resource sheet for programs and events and coaches. Again, Ronnie, if you could put that chat in the, or put the link in the chat, and there are coaches there. I put a couple of resources for free coaching opportunities, and then I put a list of paid coaches, myself and Lisa, Vern, Alki. There are some of us on this call that are on there. Feel free to reach out to any of us. We're happy to chat with you. Even if you just want a quick informal call, we can do that too. And if you'd like to connect with me particularly, I'll just put my LinkedIn profile here. Now, I imagine that there's going to be a volume of people that may want to reach out. So I would just ask for your grace there to please allow time for me to respond to individual requests. Okay. Phew, we done did it. All right. So with that, we have 15 minutes left. And I love for one of my volunteers to take a look at the Google Sheet for questions. Take a look at the chat. If there's anything that I haven't covered, anything that you'd like me to lean into, please let me know. If we finish all of those, then we'll go ahead and ask folks to raise their hands. So volunteers, anything that I can address for folks, or anything in the chat. I know this might take a second.
Shira, I can't remember if you addressed this during the presentation or not, but somebody, as you were going through the LinkedIn, said, what are your thoughts on putting open to work?
Open to work, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's a common one. Yep. All right. So I'm going to give you two contradictory opinions. And I'm not going to advise you either way. I'm just going to tell you what people say. Number one, people say, definitely do it. Why? When the second that you do it, your whole community is alerted to the fact that you are now open to work. And they're like, oh, Michael, I didn't know you. Oh, what are you looking for? And people get jobs that way. I have a coaching client who got one. He put his open to work on, and within days, a former employer of his found it and said, oh, and hired him because he had the open to work sign. Absolutely, there's legitimate reason to do it, full stop. Other side. Some people say it makes you look desperate. That's a psychological thing. I'm not saying that it does. I'm just saying it's psychological. There are some people, recruiters included, who perceive that, right, when you put that open. I am not going to advise you. I'm just going to say you need to make a good decision, but I wanted to share with you both viewpoints. I hope that helps. Mindy, I see your hand raised, and then volunteers keep looking for questions for me. Mindy?
Okay. In terms of just seeing a kind of firm that you like, doing your kind of work, but you know nobody, would you send the note to the HR director if you can find the director of the department? How do you reach out?
That's a really, really great question. And now, of course, as consultants, we have to say it depends because it does. But here's what I would say as a broad concept. So look, first of all, with all respect to my HR colleagues, and I have many, and we have some on this call,
Right.
because HR, especially HR generalists, have so much on their plate,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're juggling, they're not just recruiters. I mean, they do everything, right?
Right.
A lot of times they can't help but be a little bit transactional and a little bit sort of reactive when jobs come their way. And as a result of that, it's often hard for them, even though they want to. It's hard for them often to think of people like yourself creatively.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they have to have an open job requisition for them to consider you. So if there isn't one, and meaning if you just see the firm and there is no job, HR may not be the best to go to. You might get a creative person who can think it, but oftentimes that's not the case. If I would depending on the size of the firm, I mean, you wouldn't do this with like, Amazon or anything. I would go maybe to the higher levels. But you wouldn't just do that. You have to be very thoughtful. If you're going to proactively reach out to a company that does not know you, you got to be strategic. Why that company? What is it about their mission? What is it about what's going on that you can uniquely add value? Is there a person in that company when you do your LinkedIn search that maybe is in your lane? Maybe they're the C-suite version of your lane. There's some reason why they would want to hear from you. You always have to walk a mile in the other person's shoes. If you've got a problem that you can help them solve, figure that out. Do a direct outreach, but I'm not saying HR. I'm saying be intentional. Who is that person? And why would they want to hear from you? So I can't tell you who that is, right? But I just want to encourage you to be very thoughtful. So hopefully, Mindy, I can answer that.
So you would say, I'm a social evaluator. I thought that given your work, this might be of interest.
Maybe, yeah. But I would be very specific. You saw a press release on what they were doing. You saw a project that they were working on, that kind of thing. Yeah, I would. But I would encourage you to continue to research on LinkedIn for anybody who may be connected. And one of the ways to do that, and I didn't there. Let me just, by the way, press pause. Back on that list of job search videos that I do, there is one called Using LinkedIn Like a Pro. It's a 2-hour presentation. And I believe in there, one of the things I showed in terms of all the ways that you can do your filtering, you can go into the company, but also you may have a connection that you're not even aware of. Okay. So you've got to do a little bit of research and a little bit of digging. I really want you to try to lean in. And you know what? Even if it's not that company, it might be a related company. Just whatever you do your best to find somebody who can possibly refer you. Okay. So Mindy, thank you for your question. I'm going to have to keep on going here. Hopefully that was helpful. Susan?
Yes, thank you so much, Shira. This has been such an invaluable session and great to meet people on this call. I had 2 questions I wanted to run by you. One is, there is that option in LinkedIn where you can have jobs sent to you, I think based on keywords in your own profile.
Yes,
and I'm
for sure.
wondering, what you think about
Should you do
that.
that? So here's the thing. That goes all the way back to my initial comment that only 3% of applications lead to meaningful conversations. So even if LinkedIn is sending you targeted jobs, what does that mean? That means that's a job that is now posted to the entire community, and that a recruiter is going to be getting 100 to 200 resumes in the first 48 hours. So I'm just not a big believer in that. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't apply. You can apply. It's a free, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But please, 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 I don't want to recommend to anybody to focus their job search on the job boards. Focus your job search on the networking and just have the little 10% of your time, making sure that you hit the jobs that are at least the ones that are really on target.
I would just say one thing. It could be very helpful in the beginning steps. If you're thinking of changing the lane, changing your community, it's a great way to help you think about what it is, what the keywords are, what are they looking for, what are the skills. I tell my clients just to throw words into LinkedIn, just to kind of see, is this of interest? And then you can figure out your next steps.
Okay.
Yes.
If I may, second question. If you get premium, you can see who has looked at your profile.
Yes, you can.
And
As long as they're not anonymous.
Okay. So how do you best go back to them and say, oh, I noticed you were looking at my profile.
You don't actually. You really don't. That's the one. And then that's my opinion, Lisa. You may have a different opinion. My opinion is that if somebody's sort of lurked at you, whatever, it can be a little bit stalkerish for you to go back to them and say, hey,
It seems like
I noticed you were looking at me. If they wanted to contact you, they contact you. That's my opinion on that particular one. I don't know, Lisa, if you have a different opinion.
I mean, I think it can be a little stalkerish, but maybe it gives you the opportunity to now maybe follow their company, or you might
right.
get an
True.
HR name that
That's
maybe
right.
you could
That's
follow
right.
up with,
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Good point.
It's one of those, it depends, I think.
You know what I'd say in general with LinkedIn, here's a really good overarching phrase, and that is this: relationship rules apply.
Thank you.
If you would do it in a relationship, do it on LinkedIn. And if you wouldn't, don't. That's it. Okay,
Shira,
Shira?
there's a question in the chat.
Yes, Kat.
It says, do you have any suggestions for connecting with people in professions who tend not to use LinkedIn? This person has worked with many physicians and most of them don't have LinkedIn pages. Are there other resources that people use that might be profession specific?
Yes. And this is where I'm going to start leaning into my association community, my people. All right. So any of us in the association world know the following is absolutely true. There is an association for everything. 100% true statement. Okay. And I mean everything. You look around your room, there's an association for the plants, the windows, the everything. Okay. And so what you'd want to do then is look for your association. How do you do that? It's actually not hard. And when I say association, I mean a membership organization. And there are membership organizations that are for individual professions, what we call a professional society. And then there are trade associations that have member companies and various versions thereof. So all you need to do, literally this simple, take the profession or the industry, so the lane or the community in Google, the regular Google search, and put the word association next to it. You could put the word society. Okay, those are two very common. There are other like institute, but mostly society or association. Hit enter. You'll be shocked at the associations that come up that are in your profession, in your community, whatever. And then go to them. Some, not all, some of them have chapters, or what some people call affiliates, right? Regional groups or local groups. Here in DC, there are usually a lot of them. And see, is that an organization you want to join? A lot of times they have, networking events, chapter meetings, this and that, especially if it's at the local level. National level is a little harder to get plugged in because it's national, right? They have a national conference, it's typically expensive. But at the chapter level, a lot easier to make, to build relationships. So that's what I would recommend. And some of them, actually, a lot of them have job boards, even at the national level. There are job boards. Yeah, great. And there was somebody else who had a hand up who put it down. Can't remember who it was.
Hi, Shira.
Hey,
This is Shiraz. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for taking out time and providing this. It's really helpful. A question that I've had, and I have spoken to some of my other colleagues who are in the same situation. Whenever they're talking to employers, the employers are going at least 20 or 30% down what the market used to be, and the reason they're saying is the market and your experience. So how do you tackle that? And unfortunately, some of my friends, they have taken those positions just to make sure that they have
a job. I understand. And
or
look,
a project.
So look, I realize that what's happening in the DMV is unusual, but I'm going to generically put it in the category as if we had a recession. I'm just for job search purposes, I'm going to call it that. Okay. Whenever we have those dips in the economy, employers often do that, right? Because it's a buyer's market, seller's market. That's just kind of how it goes, and things do shift. For the moment, I can appreciate why people are doing that. All I can tell you is this: if you go back to that other slide where I was talking about, the fact that sometimes there actually is that little extra $10,000, but more importantly, that you always start high. Start as high as you can. They may walk you down. That's their prerogative. But don't undersell yourself. Don't go. You cannot go up once you start at a low number. You can't walk them up. You can always walk people down. Please, I want everybody to hear that. You can always go down. You can't go up. Now, I'm not saying that if you're kind of in that 130 to 150 range that you should be asking for 250. Of course not. Nor am I suggesting that if you're in the 130 to 150 range, you should be asking for 100 just because you think that you want to be competitive. No. Really think about where you should be. Now, here's the thing. A lot of employers are posting salaries now, which is good in the sense that you actually have something to work with. It's not sort of airy, right? So if they post the 130 to 150, still go after the 150. It's okay. If you're a qualified person, you're a qualified person. Remember, when they have that range, they're willing to pay that range. If they put down 150, they're willing to pay it. They're not going to sacrifice $10,000 to just get a cheaper person. They want the quality person and they're willing to pay that range. So under all conditions, if you see a posting, a job salary posting, go after the highest number. That's the best that I can tell you. Just please don't undersell yourself. And because understandably, once you make that decision, that's it. You're only going to probably get the COLA, cost of living increases, 3 to 4%. You really want to make sure that whatever you get on the front end is going to be something you'd be happy with as much as possible. Okay, other questions? Volunteers, if you want to help me out.
Heather just asked a question we all want to know. If there is no salary posted, what do you do?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and go back to the slide. Give me one sec, just to, because I know that I went so fast. I apologize and probably overlooked it. All right, let me go pull that back in here.
You know, there are free salary surveys and data that's out there. It may not always be the best. A lot of it, like if you go to Glassdoor, a lot of that might be identification, and therefore people may not be completely truthful in what those salaries are. But you want to try to get some real market data and use that in your conversation, and not just say, I want this because I want it, but I want it because I know what a controller does. I know what a finance person does, and I have the skills and I've done that type of work. And if employers are putting in a range that is $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 less than what the market is, they're not going to be able to find their person, and they're going to have their job open for months and months and months because they don't want to pay it, and then eventually they're going to realize that they have to range, they have to make it higher.
To that point, Lisa, I'm actually about to start a search. It's really funny. You want to hear the other side of the conversation? I'll give you a little bit of insight. All right. So I was talking to the my client, right? She's the ops person. And she said to me, oh, well, because of the market, right, we want to see what we can get away with. And she says, we're willing to start at X, but then if we need to, well, and I said to her, don't do it. I said, once somebody sees that job on the market, they're going to assume that that's what the range is. You repost it, they're not going to, that job seeker is not necessarily going to go to look at the bottom and see that you just reposted. Start with your best number. And she's like, oh, okay. And then they are, right? But it takes a recruiter who knows the market to understand those things. So I think, Lisa, you make a really great point. You've got to do your research. And to my earlier point where I went really fast, there's a lot of ways to do this research, but I really want you all to be thinking about the demographics of these companies. So let me give you an example. So the person I keep referencing from this morning's coaching, just because he's top of mind, I'm mentioning him. So I mentioned he's in the nonprofit sector, and he happens to work for a regional nonprofit here in the DMV. Not a national group who's based in the DMV. He's a regional nonprofit. And when he told me his salary, and I could have assumed it, he's down here. His national equivalent would have been up here. National and sometimes international organizations tend to pay here. The regional groups tend to pay here. And that's just the nonprofit sector. The for-profit, not GovCon, but the for-profit sector, similar. Local company, right? Small potatoes, small salary. Amazon, much bigger. Look at the title of manager. A manager in a small company, I'm just making up numbers. I don't mean this literally, but $100,000, right? You take that manager level, you put them in a Fortune 500 company, it's 3 times the rate. 3 times with a huge scope of work. So you can't always go with title. You have to really think holistically.
You have to look at the job.
You got to look at the job. You got to look at the responsibilities. You got to look at if you have any HR people in your role, if you want to you got to network. I'm not saying this is the easiest thing, but we do want to inform you that it's not as simple as, oh, let me just sort of pick a number. You really want to sort of think about things holistically. And then again, down here, you know, going back to the, if the salary is not posted, what do you say, right? I have this, I think this phrase around, I'm seeking a package around this, at least once you do your research, at least gives them something to work with, okay? And then you can all, again, start high. A high number, I should have put that in there, I'm sorry. Start with your happy dance number. So if you've done your research and your happy dance number is 130, meaning you'll take 110, but your happy dance number is 130. Say I'm seeking a total compensation package around 130. And then if they walk you down to 115 or whatever it is, you're still happy, but you've started with your happy dance.
Sorry to jump in again, but what does total cash compensation mean? Does that mean numbers of vacation days?
Thank you, Mindy.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarifying question. So that's a business term that typically means the entire benefits package. Some people call it total rewards, but total cash compensation is easiest. So that's going to be your salary plus your medical benefits, your vacation, your incentive compensation, tuition reimbursement, do they pay for parking, all of the things, okay? And so in HR, they call that total cash compensation. Again, sometimes people call it total rewards. Does that make sense?
They would have in mind a dollar number for that.
Yeah, and so I should slow down and explain why I phrased it this way. When I say I'm seeking a total cash compensation in the $130,000 range, I'm actually not quite literally saying that. What I'm saying is I'm giving you an out. When you put the $130,000 in that blank, what the employer is hearing is $130,000. And they're not hearing the term total cash compensation. They're just hearing a number. If that number 130 is in their range, like meaning they pay 110 to 130, you don't know that. They have not posted it, right? But it's in their range. They'll say, okay, great. All they'll hear is 130. However, Mindy, if that number, that 130, is above their range, where they really can only pay 110, they will then tell you. That's the only time they're going to tell you their actual number. They'll say, well, look, truth is we can only pay 110. Do you have any flexibility? Then Mindy says, because Mindy gave the 130 as her happy dance number, then you can say, well, as I mentioned, I'm seeking a total cash compensation package, which is now the broader thing. So yes, I do have some flexibility. Can we now talk about benefits? So I am open to the 110, but now I've got this as if to say $20,000 to play with, which frankly, total cash comp can be a lot of money. Bonuses, again, medical insurance is expensive, all of the things. Mandy, does that make sense? I'm just using that as an out, like you just put the phrase in there just in case you need it.
It could be a signing bonus. You could maybe ask for, you know, a review in 6 months.
But that's not the first step. The first step is the dollar amount, and then that's your fallback, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You're by putting that 130 in there, again, it's your happy dance number. It's your top number. By putting that number in that blank, you are saying to the employer, that's the number I want. And that's the number they're going to hear. And if that number is actually in their range, they're going to say just fine.
And then
but if it's not, that's when you fall back on the total comp phrase.
And then above that would be the total cash compensation, $130,000 plus.
Well, yes, that's right. Presuming that 130 actually is in their salary range, yes, it would absolutely be 130 plus. You're just saying what you're generally looking for.
Yeah.
So when recruiter Shira calls you initially to screen you, she's going to ask you for she may ask you for your number immediately. Career coach Shira and career coach Lisa would say, you don't answer that question.
That's right.
And you talk about the job because you don't know what the job is yet. And then you find out about the job and then, you know, you move into that conversation.
Right. And it's true. Now here's the and to that. Absolutely what Lisa said. And don't dodge the question totally.
Right.
The employer still needs to know whether or not to move you forward. Because the fact is if you're $50,000 off, that's a waste of everybody's time.
Correct.
So you could find out a little bit more for sure, but say, look, by the end of this conversation, I'm happy to share, you know, what I feel is appropriate, but don't dodge it completely. Okay. Do you want to at least have some sort of range in mind? Okay. Good. Thanks. Susan.
What if your problem is the opposite end of the spectrum, meaning maybe you're hired for, you know, say a mid-level or position or below, and the salary's not that high, but you prove yourself faithful and take on responsibilities that were never foreseen. How do you maneuver in a situation where you're doing more than you're getting paid for?
That would be actually when you're actually in the job. I would say that's a different conversation around you proving your worth to an employer once you've been doing that extra work. It's a tricky conversation. I'm not saying it's easy, because once you've been budgeted, you've been budgeted. Like, that's where they see you in their salary band. You would actually have to have a real thoughtful conversation with your hiring manager around, hey, can you shift me up in the hiring band, or what would it take to get an increase in salary because I'm doing this extra work, or that kind of thing. But in terms of getting the job, right, in the interview process, that wouldn't be the case because you haven't done the job yet. So I hope that addresses it a little bit. What you're saying, I think, is more once you've been employed.
Thank you.
Susan?
Sure. We had a question in the list of questions about a newer, younger employee who actually was one of those probationary employees who were terminated. And so how do they compete in this very competitive market now with colleagues who have done this kind of work like 15 or 25 years longer?
A great question. And by the way, everyone, I noticed that we are over time, and I'm, obviously you're welcome to bounce off whenever, but obviously I want to keep this going for sake of the verbal side of this. Look, that's not easy. I'm not going to give you an easy answer. What I am going to suggest here is that you obviously have some very strong superpowers that even got you that probational position. Your job, regardless of your status, regardless of your level, is to network with colleagues who know what you do, who know you, love you, and trust you, who can actually help open doors for you, relationally open doors for you, with organizations who will give you a chance. And by the way, not for nothing, we are in a difference. What makes this what some of us are calling the earthquake, what makes this earthquake different than a typical recession, or even a typical corporate layoff, where they lay off 10,000 people or whatever. What makes this very different is that there's, especially in this area, there's a lot of sensitivity. Look at the call we're doing right now. There's a lot of sensitivity to help people who've been disrupted. You just say the word probationary to your colleagues, they're going, oh, I'm so sorry. Meaning, but in a good way, meaning like, oh, let me see what I can do to help you. You're in a different position than you collectively here on this call, but also probationary folks. When there's been so much attention given to, for example, this particular disruption with the probation, okay, that it is very likely you will have colleagues that are going to want to lean in toward you, maybe even in a stronger way than other people, because they understand, you shouldn't have been let go. I'm not trying not to be political when I say that, but a lot of people feel that you shouldn't have been let go. I'll say it that way to be neutral, right? And so if you do that, I think you're going to have a lot more traction than you think. And yes, you will be competing with other people, but that's okay, because your skills are going to stand on their own 2 feet, because they were obviously strong enough to get you that role. Okay. Great, thank you. Other questions from the chat, and I don't want to keep people too long here, but anything else I can answer, or anything from the Google Sheet?
It's me again. What about on the older spectrum? Anything to say if you're, let's say, a bug 65?
Yeah, whole deep conversation around that. So what I would suggest is this. Does ageism exist? Yes, I'm not going to deny it. It does. Okay, just say it. It's there. At the same time, I firmly believe that age is a lot about mindset. When you come to the table and you bring your full self, your energy, your experience, your enthusiasm, you are fit for the role. There are more employers than you think that will give you more than a second glance because you are as competitive as other people. I'm not saying that there isn't discrimination. I cannot control how people think and feel. But I would suggest to apply for jobs where you really, really feel you're qualified, and don't let the age mindset cloud you, because people can actually feel it, even if you don't say it out of your mouth. Oftentimes we leak, right? We leak how we're thinking. So I would recommend, Mindy, you stand on your own 2 feet, that you are qualified for this role. You have the sectoral experience, whatever it is. You leverage your connections, all the things that we've been talking about today. And then, let your qualifications speak for itself. But you do want to come in with a level of energy and enthusiasm. And then something else I would suggest for any of us who are of a certain age is, to the extent possible, for us to keep up with all of us, to keep up with technology. right? As much as we can, because life does change, technology does change. And to the extent that employers are looking for newer technology, if that's appropriate for you to learn, I would recommend at least doing your best to lean into that. So Mindy, hope that helps.
Thank you, thank you.
Sure.
And that
Anything
would be
else?
one advantage of LinkedIn Premium. It has LinkedIn Learning, which is another feature of LinkedIn Premium, thousands and thousands and thousands of courses and certifications. And so that makes that subscription more palatable, especially if you're looking as you pivot your skills.
Yeah, and if you want totally free, you know, as we like to say, YouTube University in air quotes, right? There's a course for everything. There's YouTube instructional manuals. There's MOOCs, you know, the massive open online courses that universities will put on for free. Lots of ways to up-level skills. But Lisa, thank you for the LinkedIn. All right. Anything else lingering here that we can address? Marissa.
Hey, thank you. This has been super helpful. I'm kind of in a strange place where I'm starting to even look at positions that are paying significantly less. I think that's what a lot of people are saying. Would you recommend kind of sending it to, I'm starting to think of like, shall I send a resume to someone with just a direct statement, I'm looking for this range? Is that too aggressive?
It's not too aggressive. And actually, I appreciate the sensitivity around that, where you're not alone, right? There are a lot of people who are thinking that they need to go a whole chunk lower. And also to, you know, whether you should be bold. I absolutely think you should be bold about it. I think that in your cover letter, you say, look, manage expectations and say, I'm looking for now, not a range. Remember, don't put 2 numbers. They will always go for the lower one number. And even if you don't want to say this total cash compensation phrase, you can just say, I'm seeking, I'm targeting opportunities around 130,000. Say it that way. Okay. I would just leave it at that. As far as going less, please understand too that, yes, I understand that employers are trying to get away with a little bit less, but there is a place at which if you go too low, the level of the role may be too low. And employers know that. There's somebody on this call who I was talking to recently who said that they were trying to, you know, sort of regularly apply and they're not getting picked because the employer sees you here and you're applying for jobs that are down here because you want a JOB, but from their perspective, they're risk averse. They're trying to keep people who are at least at the level or who maybe, you know, for whom the job is a little bit of a next step. But if they see you as overqualified, and this has nothing to do with age, this is just qualifications. If they see you as overqualified, they're going to typically see you as a flight risk. And they're not wrong in that, by the way. Because think of it. You take that job because you need a JOB, which is understandable. What's going to happen in 6 months or a year or less than that, right? You might be looking for that new opportunity. So they're not wrong in their thinking. It's normal and natural. And there's always this tension between the employer trying to get somebody who is the right level, the right salary, who's going to be the right fit for a longer time, and your needs, right, of getting a JOB. My recommendation, I'm going to go back to the self-employment thing or the gig side of my conversation. My recommendation, Lisa, don't know if you'd agree with this, is you lean into the job that's right for you, the level that's right for you, the compensation that's right for you. And if you need extra income, go do side work. Go do a hustle, go do freelance, pull in gas money, pull in mortgage money, pull that stuff in, and then stay true to the level that you should be at. You're going to be happier. The employer's going to be happier. It's going to be much less frustrating. And that's the way I think to balance it.
And I think the tricky part is that those of us in 50s and 60s where the ageism may come up is, let's say you've had that big job, you've had, you know, big teams, and you don't want to do it anymore. You don't want to be a people leader anymore. You want to be an individual contributor. So you need to think of a way of how you say that. And yes, it is tricky of addressing the elephant in the room. Yes, you may see me as overqualified, but you know what? I have a lot that I can offer to the team. I really want to do this. I see myself as, you know, staying with your organization. I recognize you may have some concerns. Let's talk about it. And it's a risky maneuver, and I don't always recommend it, but it's you know, something for you to think about and how you have the conversation.
And I will suggest that kind of conversation works the best when it's a networking conversation. when it's somebody that trusts you, knows you, understands your situation, tease up that, call it an informational interview. But what I mean is a creative conversation with that employer and says, look, Lisa, she's at a certain stage in her career. I know she looks over. Let me tell you why she's being very intentional. And it's not just the resume, it's you as a person that's being presented by a trusted mutual colleague. Those often can help you land into something that's maybe a downshift. Yeah, relationships.
Shira, I just wanted to add to this conversation that many times what escapes people is providing a perspective from in terms of the value that you bring, right? Instead of saying I have these skill sets, you can explain, you can show your worth in the value that couch it that way, because people who are thinking money, and you're hopefully before decision makers who are manipulating budgets or managing budgets, that's how they think, and you're speaking their language, and you're also saying, oh, what I offer is something that you can associate dollars and cents to it, right? And it's showing that you are not ignorant of that discussion, and that this is how you hope to add to not only their bottom line, but how you hope to add to, let's say, the organization's legacy.
So I would say in that conversation, one of the ways that you can be showing that you can add value, and this especially if you're going to a private sector company, where if that company targets as clients, targets people who are in your network, you could be helping add to what we call their book of business. So in other words, it's a for-profit company. They are trying to, relate to organizations that you come from. You understand that sector, you have personal connections, you might be able to bring those relationships to the table. That can help them. A lot of ways to do this, but thank you, Dominique, for adding the value conversation. All right, we'll just take one more question, then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Anything else, volunteers?
I'm going to throw another out. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. My concern with LinkedIn has always been people kind of appropriating your background, kind of maybe not fraudulently, but making use of it to identify you for some sort of nefarious end. Am I overreacting?
When you say your background, how are you defining the term background?
Oh, when you're listing the jobs you've done, a little bit informational about where you've studied.
Okay, so what's the nefarious part?
That they may appropriate that in some way and use it to perhaps.
To create a fake identity, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Look, on the one hand, we know what's going on in cyber, right? Pete Jones is on this call. He's Mr. Cyber Guy. He's trying to stop scams. He has a nonprofit he works with called Stop Scams Alliance. He could probably opine on this for the next hour. So on the one hand, look, we're out there, we're digital world, people can do all kinds of things. On the other hand, LinkedIn is not sharing your personal information, meaning it's not your social security number, it's not your phone number, it's not your address, it's not none of those sort of identifiers. I would not be overly concerned. I mean, to me, you want to talk about cost benefit, the cost of not having a LinkedIn profile these days far outweighs the benefits of having a LinkedIn a good LinkedIn profile far outweighs any possible, to me, costs around what you might be talking about. That's my opinion. Pete, if you're still on the call, happy to hear from you, but I think that it maybe not be as big of a thing. That's just, again, my lens.
Yeah, I agree with Shira's comments there. I guess one thing I would add, though, is now let me come back on camera, sorry. One thing I would add is there are a lot of bad people out there, and just be careful that you don't get taken advantage of with, from bots and things like that. Because I know one of the things when people put on their, open to work, you'll get 5, 6 people, coming to you saying, we got this job or whatever, and they're not real recruiters.
Yeah, that's a good point, because now you're suddenly saying to the world, I'm open to all kinds of things, and they might, yeah.
So yeah, the bad guys are gonna be out there looking to take advantage of people looking for work.
There's always a weighing, right, for all the things that we do, for sure.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, oh wait, so Richard, you had a question. Can anyone see this question here? Sensitive internal information. We're discussing federal work that involves sensitive internal information. How can we best characterize the nature of that work without revealing too much detail? Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually working with somebody right now. I'm doing a resume of somebody who's speaking of cyber. She's a cyber expert. And all that we're doing in that resume is we are just being very, very euphemistic. We're literally just saying worked for a federal agency. That's it. We're not giving any sort of monikers, anything that would describe where she's doing it. And then of course, the nature of it, you try to be as euphemistic as you possibly can. So euphemisms. That's what I would say. Okay. All right. So thank you all, especially Lisa and Susan, for those of you who've been able to contribute, Pete and Michael, and I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. Appreciate all of you joining us today. And again, one more, recommendation to look at that Google Sheet, put your contact information there if you feel comfortable, so that we can get in touch with you about joining a Higher Vision community, or if you don't want to be a part of that, at least to connect with each other, because the Google Doc's available to everybody now. So feel free to use it. Okay. So with that, if I can ask my volunteers to stay on the call for a couple of minutes, that would be great. Otherwise, to everyone else, God bless you, and look forward to seeing you hopefully at another Higher Vision event.
Where do we get that Google Sheet if we
Ronnie, would you mind putting it back in if you're there? If you can put that back into the chat.
She jumped off.
Oh, she did. If someone can
I
grab
can
it.
find it.
Thank you so
If you
much.
save the chat, the link is in the chat. So
yeah,
it's
I'll put it in
it's a
here.
networking resource, a networking sheet.
I'll put it in here.
Thank you so much.
That's the networking sheet.
You may want to turn off the recording.
Okay, here we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Shira, for this very generous, long